paper.
Good evening and welcome to Superior High School in our Performing Arts Center for the Committee of the Whole meeting today, Monday, April 1, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have met compliance with official notification. Roll call, please.
Diana Smith.
Here.
Nick Olson. Here. Brooke Taylor.
Here.
Nick Schumacher.
Here.
I'm here. Steve Olson.
Here. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for comments by members of the public during the meeting as indicated on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the board on any of the topics included on tonight's agenda may do so by signing up on a public comment sign-up sheet by the entrance prior to the start of the meeting. The board requests refraining from making any comments involving personally identifiable information about students, staff, or administration. Comments should be respectful, focused on the items being considered by the board, and will be restricted to 3 minutes in length. Action taken at today's meeting is to be forwarded for recommendation for final approval at the next regular school board meeting on Monday, April 8th, 2024. We will move into our agenda on the comments by members of the public. As you come up to speak at the podium, I will remind you that Ann Schultz will be taking care of the time period. You have 3 minutes to speak. You will get a yellow card at 30 seconds and a red card will be shown to you when your time is up. We thank the people that have signed up and our first speaker tonight, Jenny Wolf.
Okay, can you hear me? All right. I was disheartened to hear of the proposed changes in healthcare coverage for retirees yet again. This also happened in the spring of 2021, and the board at that time voted against this proposal. Retirees made sacrifices for all of us, their colleagues, current employees, and future employees. These sacrifices were made to have health care benefits that they were promised. These retirees gave their hearts and souls to this district and gave up many pay raises to secure health care options that they were told would be there. I believe Steve Olson may have been the only one sitting up there that remembers these years. They gave up these pay raises to support their colleagues, both young and old, and to all those that would come along long after they were gone, like many of those who are in our schools today. My husband and I have been in Superior teaching and giving our lives to the community collectively for 61 years. We have both given up raises over and over again to offset the costs of healthcare for the district. We were told this benefit all of our employees who voted for this. We have had so many frustrations with healthcare in our district. My husband, along with many other staff in the district, have given up their benefit of insurance and extra money into an HRA. In exchange for this, there has been no compensation. Some districts actually pay their staff when they give up the healthcare benefit. For almost 18 years, my husband has given back to the district his 12 days of sick time because he's already accrued the max of 150. Many retirees also gave back these unused days, and for this, they were not compensated. I find it sad that our district is once again having this proposed as a budget cut. You may hear it is not common for teachers to remain on district health care after they retire. However, in Duluth, retirees are able to stay on their healthcare system. The district has continued to say that there are cheaper options, and yet when asked what these options are, there has not been an answer. So I ask you, what are our retirees worth? There are many of them sitting here today. What is the amount that our district will be saving from eliminating the people that gave their lives to this district? Is that number equal to the hundreds of years they gave to this district? When we say all means all, it should mean all retirees. Finally, I ask, what is the word of the Superior School District worth if you take away something that has been promised to these retirees? If you don't keep your word, you lose your credibility.
Our next speaker, Ray Cozy.
I'd like to address the board with my concern of removing retirees from being able to purchase district insurance. I apologize for my lack of knowledge and information about this matter. That leads me to my first concern, the lack of transparency and empathy from the board towards retirees. It concerns me that the school district did not reach out to retirees and allow for conversation about this matter. I have no idea how many retirees are paying for district insurance. Is it 5, 50, 500? I have no idea the cost to the district for allowing retirees to purchase district insurance or the savings created by this change. I believe the numbers the district is saying for savings may not be accurate and does not consider the effect it may have on other costs. One of them being teachers working longer at the top of the pay scale and the district not replacing them with new hires at the bottom of the pay scale. I do not know if the board truly understands the limitations of insurance options for retirees will face and the increased cost. I was able to answer some of these questions on how the changes would impact me for insurance coverage. In talking to an insurance company today, I was told the marketplace insurance had income restrictions and you cannot use your health retirement account money for the government tax breaks on insurance. A similar plan within the coverage that I have now with the district would cost me about $200 more a month, and my $3,000 deductible would change to $8,000 deductible per year. This new plan would force me to use one provider and all medical visits outside my provider would not be covered. A big worry for me when I travel away from home. The estimated annual insurance cost is an increase of almost $7,400 a year to me. My wife is also on the district insurance, so that would be a family increase of about $15,000 a year. As you can see, the insurance change could have a major impact on the lives and the care of the district retirees. I left a neighboring school district to work in Superior because at the time the Superior School District was the destination district for many educators. People wanted to work here because of the great relationship between the staff, administration, and the board. Working in Superior often meant higher wages and better benefits, which led to better staff. I fear this might not be the case anymore, and decisions like this, one impacting retirees, will limit quality staff wanting to work here, which will ultimately impact the students and the community. I asked the board to not approve the options of removing retirees from the district insurance. When retirees were working, they were often giving up wages yearly to keep the quality insurance benefits along with lower premiums and deductibles. That practice not only impacted staff financially, but it still impacted retirees with lower pension. We're affecting that. If you can't do that, at least consider grandfathering the retirees in. That has been a past practice. I believe that happened when the insurance was paid for retirees and actually when the HSA was changed too. So if you can't keep what was promised to the retirees, please consider grandfathering in what they have.
Our next speaker, Mr. Chris Leopold.
Hi there. I'm questioning the reasoning behind the lengthening of the school day with regards to like people who work at elementary school like myself and coach at the high school. If I could leave at 3:15 at elementary school and still be at the high school to supervise all my kids that are probably excused at 3:15, 3:20. So I'm trying to understand the reasoning and see if that still would be available. And, you know, I'm still trying to put it to my thinking about requiring the 7:45 to 3:45 because, you know, it wasn't long ago when people told us we don't need to keep track of how many hours you're there. We know you're there already too long. We're not going to nickel and dime you if you did need to leave 10 minutes early. And they said it's not always about making sure everyone puts their 40 in, but then the 7:45 to 3:45 comes up and it kind of looks like the table's been turned a little bit. And I think in the end you might get more out of some people who were there more often than 40. But getting them to be there by a certain time and leaving at a certain time might not work out for everyone. Thank you.
The next speaker, Kyle Smith.
Good evening. I have a couple topics I want to try and cover in the allotted time. If you were on the board like me, I got a few emails this weekend and some texts and phone calls of concerns and questions, and did my best to field them, communicating with the board and Amy and Dave, and I appreciate some of the communication back and forth. Couple of my topics are professional development days. I know looking at that plan of subtracting the 4 student contact days to make up the snow days, or not snow days, sorry, we're not doing snow days, but subtracting the 4 days, subtracting the 4 days, you know, and then adding the minutes to save 4 days and the amount of money we save with that. But the part of that handbook plan is adding 2 days of professional development. And I just wanted to say, I think we have enough professional development days, especially at the beginning of the year. I don't think we need an extra day, at 4 days, my understanding. And even it'd be nice, I guess, to have a day in between at semester time, but I would ask if we do that day that you would just give us that day. I think the language says something about administration can't add up to more than 50% of the day for something. So just give us the day for us to get our grades done and get those that have semester classes, get them prepared for that. But I don't think we need another 2 professional development days. Second one, Leo mentioned, was a 40-hour professional work week. Excuse me. This came up about 5 years ago, which I think nobody on the board was here at that time. And so there was this discussion about the start and end time. And so I think what we landed on was a nice compromise of the understanding of a professional 40-hour week. And I think it seems that it's been working pretty well. I think if it's not working well for someone, that's when admin needs to kind of step in and you know, call somebody out and say, you need to make sure you're here. But I feel like we're here or doing work outside of the day greatly more than 40 hours. So I would suggest keep the secondary at 7:25 and just keep it at, you know, 10 minutes after the last hour, which when we adjust, adding 5 minutes of before school and 5 minutes at the end, you know, it's like 7:25 to 3:21 or something like that. For the secondary, I'd just say keep it the same. Whatever their new start time would be, add the 30 minutes or whatever the language says and 10 minutes after. Just clarify how those mornings are going to look for elementary. How am I doing, Ann? Okay, 2%, you know, as part of the negotiation team and understanding the financial state of the district, we felt, you know, 2% was, you know, I guess close to fair, but you know, I think the day we voted on it, the day before, we heard that Duluth was getting 13% over 4 years, 6% next year, and that just, you know, kind of soured some people. But I would say that the proposal you have is the 2% for teachers on their base wage, and David had shared some information, but I think we should look at that again and make sure it's 2% on everyone's base wage and not 2% on the salary scale for other people. And so, thank you.
Our next speaker is Kelly Kantar.
Hi, my name is Kelly Kantark, and I'm a teacher at the Superior Middle School. I've been there the past 15 years. I'm here speaking to you because changing our insurance to a one-year plan and taking benefits away from retirees is not providing us with the benefits we were promised when we were hired. If you choose an essential-only plan, you limit our access to doctors we have established relationships with, which take time and money that we have already spent. Establishing a doctor who knows you takes time. Trusting your doctor takes years. The decisions you make together is a collaborative effort that will impact your entire life. My family utilizes different doctors at different health organizations. Trying to get a doctor appointment these days is pretty challenging. When you're lucky enough to get one, it is so far out that what you need may turn into something new. You wouldn't take your car to any old place if something was wrong with it. You would take the time to find the best place that specializes in that particular problem. And you would expect the problem to be taken care of quickly. We should be allowed to do the same with our healthcare. Limiting our healthcare to an essential-only plan limits our ability to make the best choices for ourselves and for our families. My family's health is my highest priority. As for retirees, they are utilizing insurance they planned on having after retirement, a benefit given to them when they agreed to work in the district. Taking that benefit away from them is like changing the rules in the middle of the game. At Mayo Clinic, there is a quote on the wall that says, "Our community is only as strong as our health." Every year, we as staff are asked to do more with less para support, less classroom money, less materials. I understand there is a budget deficit, but removing our options for healthcare is not the solution to this problem. I cannot believe I have to ask you to provide me the right to choose my own doctor.
The next speaker, Emily Sharrow.
I was locked myself out of my phone because I couldn't put the code in right. I'm Emily Sharrow. I teach at Cooper. We teachers understand that our district is in extremely dire financial states. The closing of a building and the layoffs of our colleagues have been devastating to all of us. We understand that cuts and changes are necessary to remain fiscally sound. However, the proposed change to the teacher handbook to include such strict start and end times for teachers doesn't seem like it would save money. It seems unnecessarily rigid. In my 21 years teaching in the Superior School District, I have volunteered for numerous before and after activities, PTA nights, family nights, school dances, evening fundraisers. I volunteered at Saturday 5Ks, chaperone evening ski club. I volunteered at McTeacher Night and organized other fundraisers. I've attended plays and games and concerts of my students. I've spent Saturdays and my own money garage sailing to build my classroom library. I've not been paid for any of these things. This was well above and beyond the scope of my 40-hour work week. I do these things for my students, as do my colleagues. We all know that showing up for kids matters. However, in my 17 years as a mother, I've missed many events of my own kids. Due to the 2 annual personal days I'm allowed, I've missed the weddings of my first cousin, my family reunion, birthday parties, and many of my own children's school and sporting events. I missed their first days of kindergarten, their school concerts, school open houses, which as a teacher is painful to me. I've missed an embarrassing number of hockey tournaments and football games. Due to the rigidity of my teaching schedule, my 2 personal days are used excruciatingly, painfully with prioritization. I've had to choose between my children and for which child's event to show up for and which to not. My colleagues and I already work well over 40 hours a week. As salaried professionals, we arrive early, we stay late, we take work home, we score tests, read essays, do report cards, and answer parent emails and seesaw messages on the weekends. We work through our 30-minute lunch period, and occasionally we leave soon after our students do. we schedule our kids' doctor's appointments for 4 o'clock, so we don't put an additional strain on the substitute teacher shortage. And because although we have amazing substitutes who are very capable, we know it's best for kids when we keep continuity in the classroom whenever possible. When our kids' track meet begins at 4 o'clock, we see our students out and then quickly head out ourselves. But we arrive to work early, work through lunch, and pack our bags full of work to take home on those days in order to make this happen. And it makes up in part for the events that we've had to miss as parents. If the rigidity of a start and end time makes me a better teacher, I'd like to know how. If it saves the district money, I'd like to know how. But it feels like a blow to have such a rigid start and end time proposed to reflect a 40-hour work week as if we don't already work more than 40 hours a week. As salaried professionals, we don't punch a clock. If we did, it would be obvious how much more than 40 hours a week we work. After watching 25 of our dedicated colleagues be laid off in the past few weeks, this is a further blow to morale. I encourage you to respect us as teachers and professionals, but also as mothers, fathers, and people with lives outside of work who are only allotted 2 personal days per year when most districts allow 3 to 5. Please reject the proposed handbook change and allow us to continue to apply our professional judgment to the small amount of flexibility we still have in our workday. Thank you.
The next speaker is Rachel Holden Kaufman.
I really wish that we could stop meeting like this. Truly, I feel like I'm speaking very frequently, and that doesn't feel good. I'm hoping that through the meeting tonight, we will all get some clarity on the many items on tonight's agenda that are very scary for the people in the room and the people watching at home. It feels like the rug has been pulled out from underneath us, as many people have already echoed. The things that we signed contracts for, that we have stayed in this district because we believe seem to be disappearing. There are several things that we're feeling quite uncertain about. I'll try to keep the rest of this simple, as I've already sent an email today in which I was quite vulnerable, which is not my style. But I ask today that you please seriously consider an insurance option that allows staff choice. I won't repeat what's already been said, but just please know that I echo. We staff do not benefit from an essentia-only plan that limits our ability to choose what is best for us. If we are not at our best, we cannot be in our best health, we cannot be our best for our students. And that is an important consideration from you. So we do not benefit from an essentia-only plan. We do not benefit from the loss of retiree coverage or the fear that that puts on our minds. We are more than numbers on a spreadsheet, and I really hope that you will consider all of the options.
Our final speaker, Mr. Lee Sims.
Thank you. I'd like to speak on a few different topics. First would be the 2% raise. I know that as a district, we're in a really tough situation, and closing a school, laying off 25 teachers, support staff, it's been really tough. But speaking personally, for the board to have offered 2%, which is the 3rd highest raise that we've been offered in the last 10 plus years. And again, I know I'm speaking personally because a little bit in the minority there. To me, I do think that shows that you guys are trying and you are showing that you do value us. I understand across the river, they have different rules. They got a different legislature and whatnot down in the cities that cares about public education differently than our own state. I do have so I appreciate that personally. I do have a question about, and I know I've been in communication with admin about how that 2% is allocated with different employment groups. And so hopefully there'll be some clarification with that. Specifically teachers, it's at the base step versus admin and support staff are it's 2% at whatever step somebody is at. So clarification on what's going on there. Unfortunately, given the time, we didn't have much time to figure that out in person, I guess. The second topic with the insurance, obviously lots of challenges that people have mentioned. Another perspective that I want to mention is that removing the retirees, I understand as a district we're between a rock and a hard place, but removing the retirees does have different impacts for different employee groups. For example, in 2007, when the district changed to offering $100,000 or $20,000 over 5 years to teachers after they retire to be able to use for insurance. Well, what about those that were after 2007? Since then, teachers have been offered $1,300 a year, put in an account that grows at a few percent a year. And so I just want to make that perspective that the future retirees 10, 20, 30 years from now will not have $100,000. They'll have a fraction of that, and then going out to market, that's a very different picture than what some employment groups have right now and what the previous teachers have. So just removing the retirees from the health insurance has different impacts for different employment groups. The last thing regarding the addition of minutes to the school day and what to do within those 4 days. Thank you. Probably kind of crazy, but I'm just going to throw this out there. We are doing the job that the state wants us to do. We are teaching the minutes. We are teaching our students. Please consider, given that we haven't been able to keep up with CPI, the reduction potentially in health insurance, not adding any new work days or staff development days, and just calling it a day. So thank you.
I do want to know how much we appreciate you being vulnerable, expressing your thoughts for us to consider as a board. Our next part of our agenda tonight is a report from our superintendent. There are no discussion items, and there's one informational item.
Just simply, I don't have an informational item tonight. It's just our principals.
We're moving them along.
Yep, they'll present next week. And then I've got an action item for an overnight field trip request.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion is second to approve the consideration of overnight field trip for the SHS Indian Ed program to attend the American Indian Youth with Stethoscopes Youth Summit. We were all provided with an attachment on that. Is there any discussion? I believe this is an annual trip that they've been taking.
Couple years.
Last couple of years. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Our first report tonight is from our operations committee. There are no action items, no discussion items, one informational item. Tonight, Aaron Schilling, our Director of Technology, will provide us with an update.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for your time tonight. I just want to mention that my brevity in my description tonight of some of the activities that we've been doing throughout this year hopefully doesn't at all diminish the incredible work our team has been doing. So I'm going to keep it clipping right along, but if you need more information from me, please reach out if you need to. For several years, we've been considering as a technology team the technology statement that's on the board in front of you. And this is an enduring statement. We feel like this still continues to apply even as times change, technology changes just constantly. We still want to make sure our students are self-directed. We want them to be able to access, evaluate, and apply the most effective tools and resources to collaborate, communicate, and compete globally. So that's the foundation really of a lot of our work together. We take a collaborative approach to this. We have teams that all kind of are nested in each other. One of them is our Future Ready team. I talked to you about this a little bit before last year, so I'll be brief about this. This team includes our IT team. teacher representatives, teacher librarians, some administrators, and it really does a lot of the learning together that needs to happen in order to be able to integrate technology across our district. We have a smaller facet of that team who focuses primarily on data privacy to make sure that we're really protecting our data and our students' data. And then we have our technicians that work really hard at the buildings, making sure everything is running correctly. And all those teams include a lot of the same people. We focus on various facets when we make decisions together as a team. So I will run through each of these kind of quickly and individually. But again, we look at this with a collaborative approach. And of course, student learning is always at the heart of all of the decisions that we make together. So when we're talking about personalized professional learning, we want to make sure that we are continuing to support our guest teachers. We want to make sure all of our staff learn about tools and are able to integrate technology when they're teaching their students. We have had the benefit the last few years of having technology coaches that really help to provide this training and this experience for our teachers. In light of not having a technology coach next year, we are going to make sure that we continue the momentum of supporting our teachers at each building by having some technology leaders that will be teachers that will be able to kind of build on some of the momentum that we were able to have when we had technology coaches supporting in those roles. The facet of curriculum, instruction, and assessment includes our ability to, our drive to make sure that all of our students can access content and share what they've learned, regardless of what their needs are. We want to make sure that we focus on computer science standards and make sure that our teachers know how to integrate those across the grade levels. We do have some specialized courses in our upper grades, but computer science standards are for all of our students. Just like digital citizenship lessons are as well. We want to make sure our students are safe and kind online. More prevalent this year is all of the discussion about artificial intelligence. So we've had our future ready teams, our IT teams, our data privacy teams really taking a look and learning about the benefits and the risks, and including artificial intelligence in education. So there are some really kind of special things that we need to consider when we're talking about the excitement of AI in an educational setting. And we'll be talking about this a little bit more when you guys are doing some reviewing of some of the handbook language, because we want to make sure we're really clear on what we expect of ourselves and what we expect of our students, so that we can really make sure to maximize the positives, but also make sure that we're minimizing the risks for our students and our staff. It ties in with our data privacy gear. We continue to make sure that we're putting the best stuff and the safest stuff in front of our students. So we vet our online resources. We continue to provide education for our staff and our students on making sure we are good human firewalls. We know that it's the people sometimes, all the time, that are really the first line of defense in making sure that our data stays secure. And so we provide education on things like what to do if you think that you've received a bad email or something like that. So we continue to push out communication about those kinds of things as well. The team uses a help desk ticketing system to make sure that everything is based on good decision-making, data-based decisions. We want to make sure we're efficiently responding when there's problems. We use an inventory management system to make sure that we've got all the equipment that people need in the right places at the right times. And of course, we're focused on security, so we've got a lot of critical infrastructure that our team works really hard to maintain. A lot of times behind the scenes, we don't even know that something, that our team is working this hard on all of these things, but they just make sure everything keeps running smoothly and try to communicate really clearly when there's a problem and solve it quickly too. We want to continue to do our role in making sure that we are thoughtfully allocating our resources. This includes getting the most out of our current devices and extending them for as long as possible, as long as they're still up and running and our team can maintain them. We want to make sure that we are doing our part to support the budget crunch that we're all facing. And we want to continue to promote the use of tools that we already have rather than, rather than adding more. We already have a nice robust menu. So those teacher leaders and the folks on the Future Ready team really promote the use of the tools that we already have access to. Continue to do some research and explore other cost saving strategies without compromising learning or security. Our team is proud of being able to support flexible approaches to unique learning needs. So no matter what a student or staff member might need, we can find the right solutions for them. We hope to plan for virtual learning on possible virtual snow days and if kids need to learn off-site for whatever reason. We also can promote a healthy balance of online and offline experiences as well. And finally, we're proud of our community partnerships. We partner with regional and state leaders to discuss best practices. Our team provides family communication tools and promotes all the great things that are going on in Superior through our social media platforms and our district website. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. I know wouldn't have been for Darren Colville and Case times I would never made it my last few years. We went so heavy into technology. Thank you. Our next report is our Teaching and Learning Committee, Mr. Nick Schumacher.
Okay, we have no action items, no discussion items, informational items. Jen Willoughby, Director of Early Childhood and Family Education, giving us an update on plan for 2024 purchase from the Carol Farmakis. Get it next time. And plan for this year's purchase and then kindergarten transition night.
Yeah, this is the time of year where I always bring shares. I always bring what we purchase. Hi, everyone. This is our third year receiving funds from the Carol Farmakis Fund. And Carol Farmakis was a school psychologist for our district for many years, and then she retired. And then she came back out of retirement and was a school psychologist for many, many more years, and worked primarily in the early childhood special ed department upon her second stint in our district. Her family set up a fund in memory of her legacy and love for the early childhood special education program. And the fund is intended to assist and enhance the early childhood program for many years to come. So each year I kind of sit down and have to think through what should I purchase this year with these funds. I had the pleasure of working with Carol for many years when I first started in this district. And so it's really important to me that I use the funds wisely, I guess, for our district and for our students. So this year, we purchased these two little stuffed animals that I'm passing around up there. The purple is the little owl, I guess. I don't know what he is. His companion, his heart races to show emotion, and you hold and pet your friend to slow your heartbeat with the heartbeat and match the heartbeat on the purple. So I went for the route of calming and self-regulation tools this year for our students. The elephant is called Ami. He's a mindfulness elephant, so there's different buttons on him, and he will walk you through some breathing techniques and some calming strategies. And so that's what every one of our early childhood classrooms got, one of each of them, to put in their calming corner. So that was our purchase this year. So I always like to bring and share with you what we did. The second thing I want to share is our plan for kindergarten transition. So again, this is the time of year I always come and talk about what's happening in the world of kindergarten transition. This year it's going to look a little different because many of our students across the district are transitioning to new schools. And so we are having our kindergarten transition night is in conjunction with a district-wide transition night. So Tuesday, May 7th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at all of our elementary buildings.
We will be having an event for all students who are transitioning to that building. We, as I said, will continue our K transition portion of it, a little scaled back from what we traditionally do, just because of the big event that's happening at the buildings. The families will come, they'll do some activities. We'll have some specific activities set up for our students entering kindergarten to still make that transition special for those incoming K students and primarily for the parents also to get their questions answered and help just ease that transition for students and families. So any questions for me? All right.
What's the date on that? May
7th.
7th? Okay.
Sorry?
The transition date's May
The date,
7th.
Sorry.
May 7th, yes.
Thank you. Sorry about butchering the name.
Want these back, Jen?
Thank you, Jen. Next up on our agenda, the Policies and Rules Committee, Mr. Ed Gallagher.
All right, we got a couple action items. Administration proposes approval of changes to the following policies based on Neola recommendations in order to be in compliance with state and or federal law updates. We'll need a motion for each one individually. So the first one is the first reading of policy 5340, student accidents, illnesses, concussions, and sudden cardiac arrest.
Move to approve.
Second. So motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just that these are recommendations from Neola, given some of the new expectations across districts and protections.
Any other discussions? Hearing no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes. Next one is first reading of policy 5460, graduation requirements.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
This is a recommendation based on two new requirements that have come forward for our graduating students. Looking at Crystal for backup. It's the incoming ninth graders. Ninth graders that will have a personal finance class they'll be required to take, and it's our current ninth graders who will have a health requirement as well. And so we felt it was time that we take a look at our overall number of requirements. We're one of the few districts that continue to require 4 years of social studies, and so our recommendation is for 3 years of social studies to accommodate those students who might not be college bound and may want some additional opportunities through electives in the course of their high school career. So the number would stay the same, the number of overall graduation requirements, just the change would be the social studies would be required for 3 years instead of 4 years with additional opportunities and flexibilities for electives.
So the credits is the same.
Yep. The number to graduate continues to stay the same. It would just be simply changing the requirement for social studies, given the two new requirements.
And then electives, especially in the senior year that I'm thinking where this affects is the requirement in the past where they had to have a half a semester American government and then a half a semester of econ. Will those classes be offered as electives?
So again, I'm looking at Crystal for any additional information, but at this point, we're going to work with the social studies department to really outline what that will look like for those 4 years. That hasn't been decided yet.
Yep, and the social studies department, we already started discussion with you guys.
They want that to look like.
I know Aaron Fezzi has done some research on what other high schools our size often offer. So we'll finish those details with the social studies department, and then that'll be made clear in the course catalog.
Right. And again, this would be the graduating class that would be coming in as freshmen next year.
So perhaps I think I know, but so the health credit, the additional half credit of health, could we have a little bit more of an explanation on that? The state requirement is that every student in the state must have health sometime between the grades of 7 and 12, but we're adding an additional half credit of health at the high school.
So sorry, can you guys hear me? Okay, great. For many years, our district has chosen to put that half credit of required health at the 7th grade level. But there was discussion several years ago starting to show concern that why is 7th grade the only time, that's pretty young, to offer our only health course, when oftentimes that high school requirement is offered at the high school level at usually the 9th or the 10th grade level. So the decision was made to move the required health component to the high school level, which will start with next year's sophomores, will take it as sophomores. But we want to keep a health component at the middle school as well. Students should have health instruction and standards a couple of times throughout their secondary experience. So we're moving the graduation requirement component for the health, Steve, to 10th grade instead of 7th.
We currently get some of those standards covered in Keystone, is that correct?
Yep.
So it would be adding them to a different course.
Yep. That answer?
Thank you. Yes.
Does this new structure, I mean, the old structure had what's expected 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. New structure just says 9th through 12th grade have this done. Does this allow for students to get out of class earlier in their 12th year? Should they get stuff done sooner?
Does this allow for earlier graduation for some students?
I guess you could put it like that.
Well, the number's still the same. It just allows them more flexibility. Typically would be their senior year that they would be able to take other classes besides the required social studies classes.
I guess, could students achieve the credits faster?
No. We still have students who graduate early. Right?
Yeah,
Right.
personal financial literacy will be required at the 12th grade level. So students will have to complete that their senior year. That's where we're going to put that class. So it's kind of most relevant to life beyond high school.
Is your question in and around where right now it delineates civics 9, world history 10, US history 11, and then it'll be the electives. So where is that, Mr. Gallagher, is that where your questioning is? So the same thing with the English, we have an English 9 and English 10 and English 11, English 12. There are requirements, or are there some electives that students can also take?
So those specific grade level things will be outlined and have always been more outlined in the course catalog. We've tried to simplify this in the policy. The way it was kind of confusing to read and more information than that needs to be in a policy. We want it like outlined more generally.
And like you said, the course catalog really will be the administrative guideline that will reflect the policy here. So it will outline for students coming in for each of the graduating classes what they'll be required to have for graduation. And we have yet to decide what that looks like for the social studies department for the incoming class, for the incoming ninth graders, because we want to work with the social studies department to define that.
Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass. I have no discussion items. One informational item is to delete the administrative guideline 5460 graduation requirements, as it's a repetition of policy.
Yeah, it just was a duplication of what was already there, and that's not really what the purpose of it is, so we can just delete that.
So as long as we agree to
Regardless of the changes you make, I think we don't need that administrative.
just get rid of it.
Yeah.
And that's everything I have for my committee.
Thank you. Next is our Budget Insurance Committee, Mr. Nick Olson.
Okay, we have a couple informational items. Fund 10 revenue and expense update. David, do you have any insight, highlights?
We got our big, another big check here. We got another big revenue check that came in here last week, so it bumped up our revenue. We'll see another somewhat large deposit in June, and then that's it for us. So we're on track is kind of what I'm looking at as far as revenue expenses.
Okay. And then we have a health insurance presentation from Marsh and McClellan Agency.
Yep. So we have Marsh McLennan come in. They're going to give a presentation on the quotes that they were able to get from multiple vendors. Once they're completed, I'm going to give more detailed information about the whole process. So,
welcome.
I'd like to start with just introduction. My name's Bob St. Arnold. I'm very, very vested in making sure that the employees and the retirees get the best coverage and options out there. I have 3 children that graduated from the Superior school system, so all gainfully employed, and you guys put out a good product. Thank you for all that you did for our family. So we take it very seriously. We wanted to basically leave no stone unturned. So we explored all of the viable, fully insured health plans that will work in terms of network for the Duluth-Superior area. With me is Jen Champa. Jen also helps provide service for the school district of Superior and was very much involved in working with all of the different carriers on options for the employees. We started this task in January. David reached out and said that there are some budget challenges, so we really cannot leave any stone unturned. So with that directive, we approach the incumbent carrier Health Trust, who pays your claims from a claim platform called UMR. They're the current carrier. We also approached Security Health Plan out of Marshfield, Wisconsin Physician Service, WPS, Health Partners, and Medica. So those were the carriers that we felt were viable in terms of the geography that we're trying to service. We also looked at self-funded plans. So with that, I'm going to just have Jen kind of walk you through the vetting process that we did to look at all of the fully insured options.
Thanks for having me. Can we advance?
you have the clicker down there?
Oh, is there a clicker? Here we go, right in front of me. Perfect. So before I go on to discuss the proposals we got from the carriers, we wanted to note that the IRS has these fun rules and guidelines that we have to follow in order to make sure that the plan that is offered continues to be what we refer to as HSA compliant. There's a certain structure to the deductible that has to be set in order for the continuation of having contributions put into a health savings account. So for 2024, that amount went from $3,000 to $3,200. So I just wanted to point that out because you'll see that referenced in the proposals that we have set up. So just to recap, these are the carriers that we reached out to get proposals on behalf of the district. We, again, like Bob said, got fully insured and self-insured proposals, and these are the carriers that we went out to. Our self-insured were very similar to our fully insured. This is a very busy spreadsheet, but in essence, these are outlined what your current GHT plan rates are, what the renewal came in from GHT and the rates provided there. The next 2 columns are the proposals we received from Health Partners. We received and we had requested rates reflecting with the retirees still on the plan and if the retirees were to come off the plan. For the carriers that did provide us both options, you'll see them side by side. So the first 2 columns are, again, Health Partners provided quoted rates with the retirees remaining on the plan and quoted rates with them out. That proposal, Those rates came in approximately 16.5% with the retirees on over the renewal provided by GHT, and approximately 12% over without the retirees on the plan. The next two columns are the proposals we received from Medica. This is only with retirees on the plan. There were some time constraints here as far as the information on this slide, but I'm going to explain why there's two columns here, because there are two plan designs, or excuse me, two networks being offered as an option. The first column are the rates provided for Medica's broad network called the Passport Network. The second column are the rates provided by Medica for their ACO product or their Ascension network. Oops, sorry. You'll see on the first Medica column that those rates are coming in just shy of 2% over the proposed GHT renewal. That would be for the broad network plan. The column next to that again is for the Essentia, their ACO network plan. Those rates are coming in approximately 18% below your GHT renewal. The next two columns are from Security Health Plan. Again, they are providing us a proposal with the retirees and without the retirees. Sorry, you guys are a little squinty. With the retirees on, the proposal's coming in just shy of 6% over the GHT proposed renewal. And without the retirees, it's just over 3%. WPS only provided us a proposal with the retirees on there. And you'll see it's a fairly, I believe it's 19% over your GHT renewal. So these are the fully insured proposals we received. This is a very busy slide as well, but this is just to represent the proposals we did receive if the district were to go to what we refer to as a self-funded or self-insured plan design. Ultimately, these are all including the retirees for the rates. We did get proposals without retirees, but I just left in the ones with the retirees to reflect. So you'll see I took the GHT rates because it's kind of hard to compare set rates, which is what you have right now as a fully insured plan. But we took those numbers and compared them to what we call the expected funding amount. So these are the rates that we calculate utilizing fixed cost and expected claims provided by the carrier. And you'll notice that they're all significantly higher, but again, it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison to what you have right now. And that is what we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I got a headache. Thank you. All right, I hope everybody got that.
And
I'm gonna give a quick.
can we as board members get that emailed to us so that we can take long at?
Yep. I'm gonna give a quick overview of it though. So this slide, the reason we have this slide here is to show that we went out to multiple vendors, that it wasn't just, hey, let's get GHT, let's get Medica. We went to 5 vendors and said, hey, what can you provide? Looking at these numbers, I know you guys can't see it because it's real small writing, but what it is Health Partners is coming in really high. Security Health Plan is coming in lower, but that's an HMO plan. That's not something that we want to go with. And it's still higher than what GHT provided. And then the last one, WPS, is 19% or something. They're all high. So when you look at it, the only two that you can really, that are in consideration financially and operationally are either we renew with GHT or we go with Medica. So this right here is self-insured insurance. this is where we want to be someday. This is our utopia. Right now, we're not there. Self-insured provides the biggest savings. Self-insured also provides the biggest risk. The analogy I like to use on it is it's gambling, except we're the house, but the house still has to pay a jackpot sometimes. We're not at that point yet where we can say, all right, we're going to set $2 million aside. And if we miss, we have that money to pay out. If we don't miss, then we're going to have a savings. We're not at that point yet, but the way the budget is right now, the deficit we're facing, we're not at that point. That's where we want to get to, because that's going to maximize our savings, but there's a lot of risk involved. And just right now, we don't want to take a step in that direction. So now it's my presentation. Usually when I do these presentations, I end it with, everything's going to be fine. I'm going to start it with, everything will be fine. We are going to figure out what we're going to do. We are going to survive as a district. This district's been here for a long time and will continue to be here for a long time. But now I'm going to be blunt. We are in a very, very bad situation budget-wise. The reason we're at this point is in the 24-25 school year, we were down $4.5 million right out the gate. That was our deficit we faced. The reason we have that is ESSER money, federal funds, is giving us $5 million that we need to spend. We have to spend it during this budget year or by September 30th. The state says, we're going to give you $600,000 around to replenish that. That's where you're getting your $4.5 million deficit. 80% of our expenses are salaries and benefits. I hear people say, don't make the cuts, don't make the cuts, don't make the cuts. I never hear anybody say where you make the cuts at. 20% of the expenses, if we don't touch salary and benefits, that's all we can touch. But it doesn't matter what you do, you still need to heat your buildings. You still need to pay the bills. You can't put water in the bus gas tanks. It's not going to run. You have to pay for fuel. There is only a small area that we can make cuts, and we have been making significant cuts across the board there. The health insurance rates that we have right now are going up 4% with GHT. Okay, that means we're increasing expenses. We're not decreasing expenses if we just stay with what we have. We have to find a solution. We have to find a place where we can make those cuts. Overall, that GHT renewal is $6.9 million. We're looking at a $60 million budget. $6.9 million is in your health insurance benefits. Okay, if we can find an area to cut, this one's a big one. This is one of the biggest expenses we have outside of salaries. We've already cut staff. Myself, Amy, Molly, the board, we don't want to cut staff. We don't want to do this. We don't want to limit our health insurance choices. I don't want to limit our health insurance choices. But the state has given us no choice. You need to make cuts, is what they're saying. That is their directive. You will make cuts. And right now, with the cuts we made, we are still at a significant deficit. This is what we're at right now before any changes to this health insurance. The column one is the red ones. Those red numbers right there. $1.4 million is what we are facing for a deficit next year. What that means is we won't have the money to make payroll. We won't have the money to pay bills. What it comes down to is, how do you get that money? You do it off of short-term borrowing. You go out to the banks and say, I need more money. And they'll say, we will give you more money, but we're going to make you pay for that money. And if anybody's seen the interest rates out there, they're going the wrong direction if you want to borrow money from anybody. Then look at next year, $2.78 million. Then after that, $5.22 million. There has to be something, we have to do something, all right? So the savings by Medica, when I looked at it, the GHT is an increase. Medica is a decrease. The Medica ACO plan will have a total savings of $1.2 million. 1.1 of that is the district. The reason that only 1.1 is the district is because there's an 88 and 12% split. 88% of the cost of a premium is the district, 12% is to the employee. What that means is that the difference between 1.2 and 1.1, that's a savings that goes directly to the employees because the premiums are going down. Now the savings on this are, all right, I will be done within 5 hours. The savings are based on the ACO narrow network plan. So as Bob mentioned, they are offering, there's two plans out there. There's the narrow network plan, which is the ACO plan, and then there's the passport plan. That's the broad plan, similar to what we currently have. With that, this isn't 1 year savings. So isn't we save $1 million next year and then we don't save next year. We're going to save again overall as we keep going, but health insurance is going to keep increasing. The health insurance industry, the whole program is broken and we're going to see those increased costs. We're seeing this reduction because of the narrow network that we're able to get into. But employees will still have options, but I'm not going to lie. You're going to have the option to go with that broad plan, but you're going to pay. And it's significant. It is significant. The district will pay up to 12% of the premiums for the ACO plan, the narrow plan. If an employee wants to go into the passport plan, then they're responsible for the difference in premiums between the ACO narrow network and the passport plan. These are the numbers. What this one's going over, I like the second box because I like to look at the yearly numbers. So if you're a current employee, single insurance, right now this year you're going to pay $940.19. Next year, if you select the Medica narrow network plan, you're going to spend $795.73. So $145 savings, $145 less than what you're paying this year. But if you want to go into the broad plan, you're going to pay $2,453. So you're going to pay significantly more. It gets even bigger when you go down and look at the family plan. Currently, we pay about $3,000. The narrow network plan, it's $2,500. You're going with the broad plan, it's $7,800. So it is over $5,000 more to go to that other network. So the savings are significant, or the cost is significant. But with that, this is when I looked at individual patients that go out to different facilities. As you can see, 78% of the patient visits out there were going to Essentia. 18% to Luke's, and then the smaller ones that make up, individual Mayo, which one I hear a lot about, 0.5%. And then there's 7 other different facilities. There's the Ashland Clinic. There was another place out in the cities. So these make up very different amounts. So what it's showing is a majority of our people are going to Essentia currently. Also with this, the way I look at it is the options that you have out there. If we are going to, let's say, for example, we wanted to find a different way other than changes this insurance plan. The raises that we gave last year wouldn't even cover the savings that we have from this health plan. That's if you froze steps and gave no CPI, which you'll see later on is around $1 million. This is saving over $1.1 million. With that, it's less than, or about 50% maybe of our employees that use our health insurance. 100% of our employees would cover so that 50% could have that broad plan. With the people that are on our insurance, as you can see, 20% aren't primarily using Essentia Health. So again, 100% of the employee force would be covering the 20% that are going to other facilities. But again, I want to emphasize this, and I can't emphasize this enough. There isn't a single person out here in the chairs or up on the stage that want to go in this direction. But the state is forcing us to go in this direction. They said make cuts. There's only so many places you can cut. So the removing of the retirees. So having the retirees on the district costs the district an extra $265,000 a year. The reason that $302,000 is on there is that's total cost. Again, there's the 88-12 split. So 88% of that is $265,000 that the district is paying extra. The difference then is an expense that goes out to the employees. With this, we are not going to come out of the meeting and say, we are removing retirees. Good luck. There is an 18-month requirement that we have that we would follow under COBRA to say, hey, you have 18 months to figure out where you're going to get health insurance from. Currently, I believe there is 33 retirees that use our insurance. Of those, 5 or 6 are actually going to age out because they're going to hit the Medicare age, sorry. So those are the ones we're talking about. But the thing is, if we don't do this now, we can't collect those savings for 2 years. We will not see any savings from retirees for the next 2 years because we will still have retirees on our program that retired, years ago. But if we're going to do it, like I said, we have to do it. We have to do it right now. Also, I know it was brought up grandfathering. If you grandfather someone and you don't get that benefit yet because the retirees are still on there. If somebody retired at the age of 55 just this past year and they roll off at 65, that means we're not going to see savings for 11 years because of that. This is the big thing. I talked to multiple school business managers throughout the state. I asked them, are you worried about salary increases? Are you worried about, inflation on utilities? What are you worried about? And they said, no, the only thing that keeps me up at night is health insurance. At a 10% rate, a 10% increase, which we are lucky with the rates we got. At a 10% increase, in 10 years, we're paying $15.5 million. Right now, we're paying 6.6. In 8 years, it will double. Insurance is going to break. For people that say, hey, I want to have that retiree insurance for me when I'm out there when I retire, I don't see any way it's possibly there. This is something we keep coming back to since 2021, I think is when I was here and they were talking about it. It's not going to go away. These expenses that we are incurring as a district are not going to go away. They're going to keep increasing and increasing and increasing.
And our revenue will go down.
And our revenue is going to go down because we're in a declining enrollment district. We're going to see small bumps in revenue and huge bumps in expenses. So again, it gets back to this. And why are we here? Why are we asking to make this change? Why is administration recommending this change that's going to affect every single person, including me? It's because of these numbers right here. If we make this change, we are still at a $400,000 deficit. But we can find a way. We will find a way. Like I said, we will be okay. But if we drop it down, even next year, we're at $1.7 million deficit. Then $4.2 million deficit. We are going to be required to make very hard, very difficult decisions. But we need to find the ones that are going to affect our students the least amount and still give all our employees access to good health care that is available to them throughout the area. Now, I know there's been other questions. I actually have Medica here that in case any questions came up about as far as, what if I have a student that goes to UW-Madison? Well, they're in the travel program. They do have the ability to go to a facility that's down by UW-Madison. But as an employee, you will be limited to what Medica's service area is. Their Medica service area is a little bit south of Eau Claire. And then so anything that's south or north of Eau Claire, that is Medica service area, all of Minnesota, all of North Dakota. And they'll get more maps to show where everything is to show that. But what it is yes, we are going to require, if you're going to use that narrow network plan, that you are going to need to use an essential facility unless you get a referral. But I want to preference this. If you are banking on taking this narrow network to save money and then banking on a referral, that is not a good financial strategy. Essentia will and Medica will approve a referral outside of it if it is something that Essentia doesn't provide. Do not, please, I'm telling you, do not bank on trying to get a referral to go somewhere else. If you want to go somewhere else, then you're going to have to look at that other broad-based plan. So what are the next steps? If this gets passed, we need to inform everybody that's going to be affected with it. That's current employees, retirees, saying this is what's happening right there. Because retirees are going to be affected by this as well during that 18th month period. They are going to be under this new plan where they have the decision to go with the broad-based plan or the narrow-based plan. And then we're going to prepare for open enrollment. So we will have, if it gets improved in April, all of May and June, so we can roll out in July 1st. Medica is a local company. I talked to the person that lives out in Duluth. She's been very responsive, and they also have a lot of cool benefits that are tied into it. I know one thing is gym membership. Everybody wants gym memberships. They actually have it's an online gym, and with an app where you can go and use it, which I think more people will be able to use that. Also, another thing is a strategy we need to do as a district. We need to inform people on what those options are that we have out there. We need to really push people to use that preventative care that's covered at 100% so they don't get sick. Because we do want to make sure everybody's healthy. And then the other thing is, I remember sitting in the seats all the time, sitting in the board meetings, and them always saying, Write your representative, make your voice be heard. And I kind of rolled my eyes. Now I see why that's important. If they don't hear from us, then they're not going to make any changes. Public education is not a priority in the state of Wisconsin, and our legislation is saying it is not a priority. We need to tell them that it needs to become a priority. If we were just covered even at the voucher rate, which is $13,000, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now because we'd be financially more healthy than what we are right now. Public education is not a priority. Make your voice heard. Write your representatives, write the people down south and let them know, hey, we can't continue with this because who it's hurting, who it's affecting is all of us in here, everybody that works for us, all 4,000 students, all 8,000 parents, all 16,000 grandparents, and everybody else in this community. So that's all I have.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
On our board agenda, it talks about a savings of 663,000. Can you talk about why that changed?
Yep. So on the, like she said, on the board agenda, it's $663,000 in savings. This whole process has been very fluid. We have been pushing hard. Like we said, we are looking for any and every way to save money. The original quote that Medica provided with us had, it was around a 10%. I can't remember the numbers or whatever it was. We went back to them and said, that isn't going to cut it for us. And Medica came back with a renewed rate on Friday afternoon of increasing the savings, and the savings is actually going to be, instead of the $663,000, it's $899,000 compared to what we are paying this year. In my mind, that number is totally irrelevant. GHT is not going to let us come back and just pay what we paid this year and next year. GHT came in and increased, their renewal is an increase of over $260,000. So the actual savings we have by going to the Medica narrow network is $1.1 million for the district. And then another $100,000 or over $100,000 for the employee, because the employee, again, they get 12% of that reduction.
I just want to reiterate some of the comments that David made. To me, I don't see that I don't see that there is any other option but changing our health insurance for our employees, given the budget situation. Please remember that these recommendations come after. We have already cut 27 teachers and administrators. Tomorrow I'll be rolling out an email that will articulate we'll be reducing another 40 support staff across the district. That's almost 100 employees that will have been reduced to get us to a 1.4 deficit. So I don't see how this isn't an option that we consider for the, not just next year, but as David's point is beyond next year.
Is this where we ask questions or?
No.
Oh, action.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Action items.
You can ask questions now, can't they? You can ask questions now, I think. And that's pertinent to their presentation.
Well, according to them, like.
Yeah.
You have questions that came up in our.
Possibly. So I have a couple questions about that. If someone's traveling, how does that work if they get hurt? Because we had a couple mention traveling and what happens.
So we'll have Dan Badger from Medica will be able to explain these.
Yes, good evening. I'm Dan Badger from Medica here in Duluth. So thank you for the question. So we have two networks we're quoting, the Essentia Choice Care, the ACO network. Your question about traveling really pertains to the Essentia Choice Care product, the Essentia Choice Care network. We have a travel program, and as David mentioned, if one of the covered members travels outside of the Medica service area, and I'm going to repeat that, what it is, it's Minnesota, the Dakotas, and western Wisconsin, basically from Eau Claire north to us here. If somebody is traveling outside of the Medica service area and needs coverage, as long as they go to our broad national network provider, they will get in-network benefits. For example, our kids went to college in Iowa, and they were, at that time, they were on my plan, they were covered under Essentia, and Iowa is outside of the Medica service area. So they went to one of our national network providers in Iowa, they got in-network benefits. If I'm down in the Twin Cities
and I go to a non-Essentia provider, which by definition, there are no Essentia providers in the Twin Cities, then that will be a non-network benefit level, except if I have a pre-authorization and you run that through Essentia. If you get a pre-authorization from Essentia to go to a non-network provider, as David mentioned, then that would be covered at the in-network level. But again, you know, the whole point, the reason why Essentia is able to provide the savings they are, it's 20% savings. The reason why Essentia is able to do that is they are controlling, you know, they're monitoring and they're responsible for all your care. So if they can't have somebody provide the care that you need, they'll give you the referral outside of the Essentia network. If they can, they'll keep you in the Essentia network.
So
Are they, are they good about, I just know that sometimes referrals, I feel like you have to advocate and fight. Are they good about working with people?
So let me answer that in two ways. First of all, we've been selling this product now for 7 years in this area, in the Twin Ports area. We have groups renewing year after year in Essentia Choice Care. We have 48% when an employer offers Essentia to its employees alongside a Passport. Passport's the broad national network. We have consistently 48% of the employees enroll in Essentia, and 97% of them renew in Essentia year after year. So that's what I want, that point I want to make to your question. 97% of the people who sign up for Essentia Choice Care renew in it year after year. Again, I can talk about cost saving statistics and higher quality outcomes from Essentia. I've got all kinds of slides, but I won't do that unless you guys want me to. I'm happy to. But they are able to provide this 20% savings, and we were able to provide the district some guarantees because of that, because they're trying to manage your overall care. If you are not able to get the care that you need from your Essentia provider and you have to get that referral from Essentia to go to a non-network provider, it will be covered at the in-network level. It's going to be case specific. It's going to depend on everybody's unique medical situation. That's how the program's set up.
Would I ask about a math question now or later?
You betcha.
Can I just review the math between the percent Essentia only and the broad Passport plan? Because it didn't seem to me like the math was correct. I don't know. I would just like to go to Marcia McClellan's slides comparing the two, and then go to David's slide with what the employees' cost would be.
Which one is it?
So
I think it's slide 5.
That one right there.
slide 5.
There you go.
Maybe I can help here. So
it's
the cost differential.
Please the pointer, somebody on the computer.
If you look at the Medica columns, the single employee plus spouse, employee plus child, and family rates per month are displayed. So the monthly premium with retirees in the group comes out to $586,000 if we have 162 taking single, 58 taking employee plus one, 43 taking employee plus child, and 160 taking family. So that's how we get to the monthly premium. So if 100% of the group all took the broad network and you include the retirees, the annual spend is going to be $7,039,000. Okay. If 100% take the narrow network product, you can see that premium differential.
It goes from 7,039,000 to 5.6 million. So that's the 20% premium advantage that narrow network product offers. So does that kind of help explain it, Nick?
Maybe I'm doing math myself here.
Okay. Roughly.
Yeah, those are the total rates. So that, for example, the 690.74 single rate that's in the Medica broad network, the single rate of 690.74, that's the 88% plus the 12%.
Yeah, that's the whole pile.
Sure. So I'm looking at the family plan, the 2210 and the 1768.
Yep.
So 12% of those numbers is 265 and 212 roughly.
Yep, so we are saying that the only way we're gonna make these savings is if, right now it's got the 88-12 split.
Yep.
The only time that 88-12 split's gonna exist is if they take the narrow network plan.
Okay.
Otherwise it doesn't, otherwise there's no savings. There's just a minor, the minor differences between them. What we're saying is if you're gonna pick the broad plan, you're gonna take the difference in premiums.
Sure.
And they're gonna have to cover 100% of that. And then we're only gonna cover 12% up to that ACO plan.
So you're going to cover the 212 no matter, or $212 is 12% of 1768 for the family?
So the 1768.
So you're covering 12, the employee is paying 12% of that.
Right.
Right. So if they chose the passport plan, they're paying the 212 plus the difference?
Yep.
Okay. So.
And that's where it's on my slide when it's deeper in, it goes into more realistic R numbers of how many employees you have and the cost that's associated with it. So that's where on mine, it'll say, if you're going to go with the ACO plan for the year, it's going to cost you $2,546 because that's 12%.
For the year?
Yep, for the year.
$2,000 for the year?
$2,500.
Okay.
Yep, $2,500 for
okay.
The employee.
I thought that was per month.
No, per month it's $212.
So it's just an extra $200.
The $2,500 per year is if you do the ACO. If you do the passport, the broad plan, that's the one that's going to cost you $7,851 a year or $654 a month.
Okay. I got it. Thank you.
Can I ask then, is the GHT, it says current, does that have the retirees then already on it? And so then the revised is with retirees still on it?
So was the Medica one because we can't get it without retirees.
Because there wouldn't be off next year.
Because they would be eligible under.
That's why we wouldn't see the savings on this for 2 years.
2 years.
So the only savings we'd incur next year is by changing to the Medica.
The only thing I'd like to reinforce, the total pie between the two products, we're thinking 35, 40, 45% of the people will take the cost savings. It could be higher, but the total spend by the district is going to be somewhere between 7,040,000 and 5.6. So that if we assume 40% take the Essentia product, you're going to be, you've kind of accounted for that in your analysis.
So if more take it than you have predicted here, we'll incur more savings.
Right.
You're saying?
No,
that's not right.
We are going to push all the expense if somebody wants to go to that broad network onto the employee. So we are going to, under this plan, we are going to spend $5.6 million. Right. Anything over that 7 million or over that is going to be incurred by the employee. And that's why there's such a big gap in the rates between what it costs the employee, is that's where it's making up that number.
Right. I'm good for now. Couple action items. We have gifts, grants, and bequests. Administration recommends approval to accept gifts, grants, and bequests received in the past month.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And the next action item, am I reading all of this?
Well, yeah,
Yes.
Should I change the number?
you can put approximately 1.1 million, right?
899.
Oh, okay, okay. It's if the 1.1 is if comparing it to this year.
Effective July 1st, 2024, administration recommends the following for an approximate savings of $899,000 for the 2024-2025 school year. Changing health insurance provider to Medica. Remove retirees from the option of staying on the district's health and dental insurance. They will have the option of COBRA for 18 months. Great option of a narrow network, Medica, ACO, Essentia for current employees. I need a motion.
Steve, do you want to reiterate who can vote and who can't vote on
Once I get
this?
my motion and my second.
Okay.
One of the most difficult things we have to do as a school board, not one, I mean, there are so many. We have been entrusted by our community to make difficult situations and handle them. We all care about public education. I don't think there's anybody here and all of you sitting in the audience. We're required. We are required to make a balanced budget. Cuts are not easy. I can say that personally because I personally remember when I was cut as a teacher from the school district. Vulnerability, the people that spoke tonight, I admire. I admire you so much. We are in a more vulnerable position. If you motion and second, this moves us to next Monday night. This allows us a week to look more at the presentation, Bob, that you sent. Appreciate that. And that you have time to ask the hard questions. And that you have time, I've said this before, to consider what the heck is best for our school district. Our children, especially, and the people that work for us. If we have a motion and a second, I want you to know that Mr. Schumacher and I may not vote on this motion. Is there a motion and a second for the action item?
When does this need to be decided by?
Next week.
That's the deadline.
We have to do open enrollment in May.
Special meetings.
Short of a special meeting.
Problem I'm having is I feel super rushed on this. But I haven't even seen these slideshows till they presented it to me right now.
David, can you talk a little bit about the timeline and why it feels that way?
Yep. So the reason that is in order for Marsh McLennan to get rates or quotes in, they need to use the numbers that are most up-to-date numbers. 2 years ago and last year, we were not doing very well on the health insurance side. Our usage was extremely high. This year, we're actually doing really well comparatively. When you have good numbers like that, you want to wait and get as many as you can to flow into there so you can get a high quality quote. Otherwise, they're just going to go after the numbers that are old, that are inflated, or they're going to make estimates that are going to be inflated. So we've been working with Marshall Planet since January saying, hey, how can we do this? We need to get these quotes as quick as we can. Literally, I mean, we got some quotes 2 weeks ago. We were able to look at them. GHT came in, I had a health insurance committee meeting on Thursday at 4:30, and at 3 o'clock they came in and dropped their rates significantly. On Friday afternoon, Medica came back and dropped their rates. So it is extremely fluid and to get the amount we have, but it creates that extremely narrow timeline that we need to meet in order to get it. And so we can roll this out because there's significant changes. If we're changing carriers, there are significant changes that need to take place in the back end with HR because we are going to be affecting, having to reach out to all 700 employees to see who wants to sign up for this type of insurance. So yeah, it is tight, but this isn't abnormal either. This is when the health insurance stuff would come to be presented to the board. So.
And we've been working on this with the committee for how long?
Yeah, we had committee meetings. Yeah, it was back in, I think we had one at the beginning of February. And again, I wish we could have done it quicker to get it in front of the committee quicker, but we were waiting for those rates to come in. We were actually going to have the committee meeting last Monday, and then we had a snow day, so we had to postpone it till Thursday. And it worked out that we did. I mean, this is a $200,000 additional savings that came about because of this. So, but yeah, it's critical that we make a decision, and the numbers could change even from this week to next week, depending on what, if Medica or GHT find some other way that there's additional savings.
For the better, right? Change for the better?
Change for the better, yes. These rates are locked in. But like I said, it's really tough to make the decisions, but the thing I tell people, and I told this to the health insurance committee, if you're going to tell me no, then tell me where to make the cuts. There isn't any other place. And if the board decides not to go forward with this, then we'll have to figure out what we're going to do. But when we cut 25 teachers, the number I always tell people is a teacher's about $100,000 on your budget. But we don't lay off $100,000 teachers. The teachers that are getting laid off are the ones that are relatively new, the ones that are single and have single, the single health insurance plan, that are down at step 2, step 3, step 4, that are making, $50,000 a year. They're not maxed out on top scale. So when we say it's $100,000, this 1.1 million isn't 11 teachers, it's 16. And the money has to come from somewhere, or like I said, we short-term borrow and then we pay through the nose. And then instead of just paying getting $1 million payroll to cover payroll, we also get $1 million loan and then have to pay the interest on that. It's not sustainable.
I think I express the same frustration. It feels very rushed when this is such a heavy decision that we are making. Some of it. And we're taking recommendations as a board from individuals that are being paid to do this and that are crunching the numbers. You guys are agonizing over this as well. This isn't easy for any of you. But like Dave is saying, where is this money going to come from? It doesn't feel right. But where do you find the money? And so, yeah, I just want to make sure, I feel bad that there seems to be no transparency. Again, we're in this situation where we're getting the information pretty much the same time as everyone else and having to digest it and figure it out. Even as of Friday, we were getting information and you're trying to enjoy your Easter weekend with family and you're feeling this. I don't want to compare because it's not, but it's not been easy for anyone.
I think it's important to remember you're not making the decision tonight.
No, and this is
the decision to keep the conversation going because we have time to answer questions still.
And I would hope that there are more people that send emails if this does move forward, even about the other things on the agenda tonight. It's really good and important to get feedback from people that this is affecting. speaking. I appreciate the speakers tonight. And emails, if they can be sent, maybe prior to Monday so that, again, we can take them and digest them and think about them is helpful because it's hard right before a meeting to take in those emails and try to navigate that. But in everything we do, I'm trying to keep an open mind. I don't come into these meetings with my mind just made up. So it's challenging.
My concern also is we've started discussions on referendums. And before we know what we want to do with the referendum, we got to make decisions that are seemingly unreversible. If I said that right. Irreversible, maybe that's the right word. Teachers, yeah. Okay. So I almost feel like we're doing one thing before the other that's in the wrong order here. If I hate to see a referendum come because I feel like it's inevitable in the future. And I think that's probably something Dave can agree with me on for once here.
Necessarily be approved or passed.
But I know it, but I think it's whether we're there today or whether we're there next year, I think it's coming one way or another that we're going to have to ask for a referendum because those numbers are going to keep growing the wrong direction. And so I hate to cut people out of the system before we know what we're going to do with the referendum and what could potentially save something like this if that's what we're going to do. So that's kind of my mindset is kind of stalled in that.
The big thing is I don't think we can't assume we're going to get a referendum.
I know we can't.
It's, we go to year on these health insurance plans. And so you do have the option of opting into a broader plan. It's certainly not ideal, especially for the employees that leave one provider to get, become go to an essential provider after being at St. Luke's and then have the option going back to St. Luke's. It's also something where, like I said, about that self-funded plan or whatever. But what I'm looking at right now is I'm not banking on a referendum. Tomorrow is going to be very telling. There are 81 operational referendums going out for 79 different schools. I want to see how many are passed, what that's feeling like. Menominee just had one a month and a half ago. It failed. The first thing that superintendent did when he had an interview was say, I probably got to close 2 of my rural elementary schools because there's no other way to make cuts. We can't.
I think one of the things you've also said is even after making adjustments this year, we still have significant loss that we need to address. And that's partly the solution for a referendum that would help offset some of that significant reductions that we have to do year after year after year. Even after this decision, if this decision were made.
When I showed you that number, it said $2.7 million is a deficit next, the following year. If you knock $1 million off because we make $1 million savings because of health insurance, you're still $1.7 million. A number greater than the number we're discussing right now. Where's the low hanging fruit at that point in time? Where do you make cuts?
David, when you presented the amount of visits for Essentia Health in St. Luke's, was that visits or like people? Was it 18% of people or 18% of visits?
It's unique patients that went to each one of the healthcare organizations. It was, when I looked at visits, 76% was Essentia.
Okay.
So I didn't want to share the whole screen because I'm sure there's some privacy stuff that's on there, but I reran the numbers on unique patients, which I showed up there. And then I also ran a pot on visits as well and broke down all the visits.
Yeah.
And that was 76%.
For me, I can't vote on this. My wife's the teacher and we use the school district insurance. If that tells you anything about my insurance with my work, it's a lot more expensive. So, having to make a decision, I sort of feel bad because I'm not involved in it in a way, but if it was just for me and my family, looking at cost savings, I'd be doing it in a heartbeat. Obviously, I'm not just looking at my family. I'm I'm looking at a lot of families out there. And that's hard. That's hard to do. So, but, you know, I think as Amy said too, like we need to have a discussion. We need to figure out, it doesn't mean that next week that it's a for sure thing, but it, you know, we got to move this forward because the discussion has to be had at some point. Whether next week we decide to push that back and talk about some of the stuff we had talked about with the referendum and waiting on certain things, but we can't sit on this either. At some point, you know, do something with it.
So I'll say this, while I disagree with some of the stuff on this, to do things right, I'll make the motion just to continue discussion. Although I'm not motioning because I agree with all this stuff, I'm motioning so that we can discuss it. So you have my motion.
I don't think you can.
I have a motion.
A second.
Is there a second?
I'll second, and I agree with exactly what Ed's saying, that I don't necessarily agree or I'm totally for this, but we do have to move forward and talk about it, whether we choose to do this or not.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
So can I just say this too? I know people are looking probably at me weird. Even though my wife's a teacher, we do not use the school district insurance. That's why I felt differently than these two. Just so that's out there. I don't use the insurance here, so. Neither does my wife.
Are we able to break these up into 3 different things that we vote on separately instead of all together?
Let's break it up into 3 things to discuss separately.
Okay.
I think you can amend a motion next week to change an aspects of the recommendation.
So now we're discussing removing retirees from healthcare, which I get COBRA for 18 months, but they have to pay 100% of that.
They do now.
What's that?
They do now as well. Retired
for that 18 months?
100% of their premiums now.
Okay.
For COBRA as well.
All right.
And now, even though Steve and Nick can't vote on this, like Nick, you shared your perspective on things.
Yeah, and all my 3 kids, my wife have been on St. Luke's since we've been married. I've had kids. They have the same pediatrician since they've been born. Like, I don't want them to change either. No.
I think if you compare insurances, you know, if you work at, I'm a nurse, if you work at Essentia, if you work at St. Luke's, the cost of insurance for healthcare workers isn't as great as this even. And you are, you know, if you work at St. Luke's and take their insurance, you go to St. Luke's. If you work at Essentia, you go to Essentia if you use their insurance. My husband works for Minnesota Power, and it's not narrow, but it's not as great as this. So this, and I'm not saying I agree with narrowing it down to only Essentia, but it is a great package and it has significant amount of savings. But I also very much value the relationships that people build with their providers. The trust in knowing your primary care provider is very valuable. So that is a huge burden and a huge loss for people. I went through it. So to build that trust and that care, it's very hard.
And I think with my insurance, we can choose Essentia or St. Luke's, but even at both, I still have to check if providers are in network, even at the specific hospitals. So sometimes if my child is seeing a specialist, I still have to check, even though we're Essentia Health, patients, I still have to check if that will be in network or not. And if it's not, I do have to pick somebody else or I choose to pay. So again, I'm not saying I'm in support, but I think insurance just really is a difficult thing, and it is, something's got to give with it. I mean, we see with the increases continuing to happen, it's just.
One of the things I'd like to know is someone brought it up at least twice. Was there past agreements that had to do with pay and healthcare in previous years, previous boards?
Well,
said 2021, the board voted against.
Yeah.
The health.
Conversation came up about retirees in 2021 and it was tabled or declined, denied. Is that what you mean?
That's what somebody, I think Jenny Wolf had brought that up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
It did not move forward, if I remember correctly.
So what was the agreement talked about in regards to the raises in healthcare?
That was not under.
You know?
No.
I think it's just like any other type of plan that's out there is things can change. I mean, it's in the employee handbook where things can change.
I get that, but I'm just curious if a board, even though we're different people, it's still the district board. And I'm curious if there was something. Does anybody know when that took place?
I think it's a general statement. I don't think it's a specific agreement.
Sorry.
It was a general statement, not a specific agreement.
Someone made a statement about there being an agreement in the past with the board in regards to pay raises in healthcare. I was just wondering where that came from or how long ago that happened or the circumstance behind that.
It's been years and years of negotiation, and it was voted on by our union, it was voted on by the school board.
Is that before Act 10, Linda?
Yes.
Which is why it's different now.
And I had asked Amy about like contractually, can we change things about retirees? It seems like you are going back on an agreement that you had. It feels icky. But it's not contractual, it's in the handbook.
No, it was before handbook. It was in a contract we were given beforehand.
Those are no longer. But those are no longer valid because of Act 10.
It was still
under new rules.
So can you, one of my thoughts too, and somebody else said it too, is grandfathering retirees that are already in the retirement system. Can you explain? I guess you discussed the savings won't happen for 10, 11 years, given if someone just retired recently.
The full savings, yeah.
The full savings. But there'd be savings every year to an extent though, right?
We don't get a saving unless as they do same time. They get a savings if they're no longer on it, right?
The savings they provided was based upon no retirees being eligible to be on district plan.
No retirees altogether?
We don't get a discount with the less amount of retirees. We only get a discount if there's no retirees. That's why grandfathering isn't going to acquire a savings.
What is that discount?
$302,000 1 year and then.
Don't show that you're going to get 18% less even if you keep the retirees on it?
That one did, yes. And that's why that's what this savings wouldn't occur for 2 years. So when you looked in 2 years, that number would be higher then.
So you would kick the retirees off of it, put them on COBRA. So basically it says they're going to stay on it, but they're not staying on it.
They are.
Moving them to COBRA and then so that's false up there.
Well, COBRA is.
That should say without retirees, if you're moving us to COBRA.
No.
Well, that number is for 2 years. And then after 2 years, we have to renegotiate, I'm assuming.
So that is with retirees. The reason that's with retirees, because current retirees that have been, let's say you retired 5 years ago, you are still eligible to stay on our plan because of the COBRA. So what Medica is saying, you still have retirees on the plan because it goes back to when you retired, you could have put a note down or a piece of paper that said you are going to either take district insurance or COBRA insurance. Because we didn't do that, it just said district insurance. So required by law to provide and say you can have COBRA insurance. The COBRA insurance and the district insurance that a retiree would get right now is identical because retirees currently pay 100% of the premiums. So that up there is with retirees. They haven't provided one without, they sent me a rough draft of what without retirees were with the new current rate they gave, the old, which each of the ratios move at the same rate. So they originally went out and Medica said, all right, we will provide with retirees and without retirees. So it was 4 columns on that chart. But then Medica came back and said, because you can't take your retirees off, we're not you can still have that plan, but you can't use it, if you know what I mean.
Did you say there's 33 retirees now?
There's 29 retirees on the plan, 33 including spouses and children.
You're losing 5 at the end of this year?
That's what was said, but I had that written down.
6 people would turn 65 by the end of 2024.
After one more year, how many are you? That grandfather, you're going to drop them off eventually because they're all going to be 65. By keeping your promise to what you gave the retirees when we walked out the door and retired.
It'd be 9 years before the last person would turn 65.
Say that again, William, sorry.
9 years.
9 years.
Yep.
Give the retirees the promise of what they had when they retired. Knowing that I may not have retired if I didn't have that.
Absolutely.
That's a game changer for retirees. Yeah. Some of us would probably still be working if we knew that that was going to change. Teachers working a lot longer too, because they're not going to be able to retire, which then you're going to be paying a top salary for a longer time.
Steve, do you have any opinion that you want to say?
Dave, just so I'm clear, in our $4.5 million total deficit, is there a need to have the retirees offer insurance to get us to zero? Or are we at zero without that? And is this for the year after?
We are not going to see any savings with retirees this year or next year. This is 100%. So in 2 years, then we will realize that savings of 200,000.
But there will be less people in the older market that are on the plan. So there's potential savings there, right?
Oh, because we have them on our plan, right?
You pay the same whether you have 1 or 33. You don't get the savings until they're all off.
I understand that, but there's less people on.
But it doesn't cost us anything as far as the retirees pay 100% of the premium. So we're not paying any portion of it. All the savings is by an insurance company coming in and saying, all right, you are not offering any of your insurance to retirees. You get a lower premium now. If you are offering it to retirees, then you get a higher premium.
It's just retirees. It doesn't matter how many there are.
Because
is that right?
They're paying for the insurance.
I understand, but does it matter how many people are on it?
You either do or you don't.
The claims risk profile of the group. So underwriting looks at the group's
right
claims and makes a determination, okay, this is how much.
So if there's less
going to be in the upcoming year based on this population.
Right. So if there's less individuals in a higher risk population, then it would be less expensive. Right? It's not a group of people. It's
I don't think it's a guarantee.
Individual.
It's based on the overall risk of the groups.
Right.
So the school district Superior presented an application to all the carriers that you saw up there and said, this is our risk. How much would you charge us for this risk?
But you say there's 50, 52-year-olds, there's 50, 55-year-olds. You give them their ages, right? Right?
Yeah, I mean,
So that's not, a group of retirees does not dictate the cost savings. It's the individuals themselves. So if 6 individuals fall off that retirement plan that are in the higher risk group, then it would seem to me it's less expensive the next year.
If you take no action and decide you want to keep the retirees on the plan, next year at renewal, Medica is going to look at the demographics, the age sex factor of the entire group.
Right.
They're going to look at the claims experience for the entire group, for the actives and the retirees, and they will offer a renewal. By the way, they have a not to exceed rate cap in year 2 of 12%. And if there's 30% or more enrolled in the Essentia Choice Care, that rate cap for next year is 9%. So they put that guarantee that they won't raise the rates by more than 12%, but if you get more than 30%, they go into the narrow network product. The
most they can raise your rates by is 9. So, but they're going to look at the claims experience for the group in its entirety.
Right. So I'm just saying that it's not just having the retirees on, it's individual based, age and whatever other metrics. So if they're falling off the plan, we're less risky, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
So there's savings that way.
Potentially.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee.
And it's probably not as much. Yeah.
I think another thing to consider, like Ed bringing up the referendum, again, we aren't banking on that. I am not saying I am for that. I'm just saying there needs to be discussion that takes place about that. But if this doesn't save us money for 18 months, I mean, do we have a shot at state funding coming through and then potentially being able to keep the retirees on? It's hard to make these decisions, like what Ed is saying, a little bit before we know more about referendum, state funding. I mean.
But I think it's pretty safe to say state funding's been pretty consistent. Okay, and it has not kept up with inflation, and I would not expect that would happen in the near future. We have just not seen that for 10 years. It certainly hasn't kept up with CPI increases.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, if you keep teachers because they can't retire because they don't get their health care, they're still going to be 60, 63, 64, 65. So you're paying for their health care, but you're also paying for top salaries. So I don't see where your monetary savings are going, number one. Number two, it's a 12% that the district is kicking in. Have you ever considered maybe putting it to 11%, maybe the employee, or reverse, so that maybe the employee is paying a little bit more of that percentage that the district is kicking in to save some money? I mean, have you ever considered just relooking at these numbers in a different way than you've been always looking at to potentially save the district money in different ways?
Can we do that?
I would caution the board at this time. Mary, I appreciate, please don't get this message wrong.
Here, I'm good.
You're not supposed to be engaging back and forth. No, Mary, just let me finish though. But David, any way you could answer something like that, or?
We can change it to whatever percentage we want, and actually 12% is low compared to, but then are the employees going to be willing to take on that additional amount? I mean, we could get it where everybody gets to have that broad plan, and it costs you an additional $5,000 every year under our family. But are people willing to take that on? I mean, one of the big things is with, is it 31 or 29 retirees on there? How many retirees do we actually have that have left the district? Of those retirees, I believe, is it one that comes from the support staff group?
Yeah.
All the rest are from teachers.
And admin.
Or teachers and admin, so.
Admin.
So 28 out of the 29 retirees on the plan have received $100,000 or more to pay for healthcare premiums when they retire. There's one person out of the support staff group that did not receive $100,000 or more. They received their sick payout into an HRA.
And that ends for those teachers, was it 2007?
7.
And they get 1,300
per year.
Per year.
I just retired, and I'm new at this place, so it's probably a dumb question, but what is COBRA and how much is it? Because I have to switch to COBRA, and I'm kind of curious what I'm looking at in my.
Retirees are paying 100% of the cost of health insurance right now. And that is the same cost that people would pay if they elect to take COBRA. So when a retiree retires, they start covering the 88% that the district had covered for them when they were an employee.
It's the same price, basically what I'm doing now.
Correct.
Same insurance content, same plan, same.
It depends on what we go with here, and that will change then for the retirees as well.
People with the extension plan, I'm gonna end up at.
You have the option to take in the passport plan as well.
And please understand, we would love to dialogue back and forth like this. We can't. It's not possible. And so you can have your questions answered through email. I'm sure Molly, Dave, Amy.
Like after you retire, I don't know what I got no access to district email.
You can email personally. Yeah, you don't have to have a district email. Everything is on the district webpage. All of our emails, all of their emails, you can find them all. And we would love to have this conversation, but we cannot.
I just was curious if I was lost.
Yeah, I'd like to, I can't vote on it again, but I'd like to break these things up for sure.
Me too.
I definitely need more time to think about this and look at all the slideshows and numbers. And like Nick Brooke, I'd like to break all these up for next week at least. But I'm not going to come to a decision tonight.
We want to talk about any of the other items?
You can talk about any of those items in there.
Just asking.
Oh, yeah.
Well, between now and next Monday, then you need to have the opportunity to have these questions asked.
And
with administration, you need to decide if you will amend motion next Monday and take each one singly. I do believe there's a motion and a second on the floor.
Correct.
And again, Nick and Steve, even though you can't vote, I think it's important to hear perspective from you. And Nick, we heard, but
I believe it's very difficult. It is very difficult for me to say this. We were promised that we would have health coverage until the time came that we were eligible at the age of 65. Saying that, I'm also in a position as a school board member to protect this organization financially. Do I think and would I love to see all the retirees stay on? Absolutely. Again, I have responsibilities for this entire school district financially.
Can never quite tell Steve when you're done talking.
I'm done.
You have really dramatic pauses, which I love, by the way.
I'm done.
And I hate to even say this, because it probably piss people off, but like, is there a possibility that we meet again Thursday this week as a board? I know it's tough, short notice, but that we before Monday, at least have discussion.
Well, what's the opportunity that David and Amy would have to sit down? Do you want to do in a smaller group, 2, 3 people, or do you want to have another type of call meeting? You have another, special session. A special session will be open to the public. That needs to be decided.
I think given the gratitude of this decision, we owe that to ourselves to make the best decision to our staff.
I would like to recommend to you that you take care of the motion. And then we can decide what our next step will be about a special session.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Remember, this is just moving it forward. This is not final vote.
Correct. This is just so we can continue the conversation.
And are we making an amendment now or?
Can we?
Can wait.
Next week.
I believe we can wait until.
I wait and then
Right.
make a final recommendation next week when you vote. Because today is just moving it forward to the regular meeting.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I have no discussion items. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. The next is the Personnel and Negotiations Committee. Ms. Brooke Taylor.
Another favorable committee here today. All right, I have several action items. The first, administration recommends approval of the April 2024 new hires and separations report.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Administration recommends releasing Shauna Anderson, transition coordinator from SHS, from her 23-24 school year contract per her request effective March 28th, 2024, with the liquidated damages provision enforced.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
What is our plan now for the rest of the school year? This transition coordinator has some position, has some responsibilities for our special needs program, project search.
Will be short.
So we have nobody in, okay.
We have the position posted right now.
Right?
Oh, okay.
For next year though.
For next year. Yeah, it's not for this year.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Administration recommends approval of the changes to the elementary handbook for the 24-25 school year per the attached summary.
Employee handbook.
What did I say?
Elementary.
Oh, employee handbook.
I'll make a motion to start discussing this.
Second.
All right.
Can I ask Molly to give some of the background on each of these items?
Please.
Want me to talk about the AI piece?
I think that sounds fine.
Yeah, this is, I just want to reiterate, this is the work from the Future Ready team. Erin is here. They've done some work around AI and coming up with some guidelines. Instead of it sitting out in cyberspace or Google, we felt like we should probably have it land here so everybody kind of knows what the general expectations are for staff. So this comes from staff and the work that you did with the Future Ready team, right? So that's what the AI piece is. All right, now you can take over.
The section 15, page 69, that's changing it if we go with the Medica plan with the narrow network option, where the district would continue to pay 88% towards the premium of the primary plan, and the cost difference of the elective plan would be covered by the employee, as David stated in his presentation.
Let me take the next one. Okay, the next one is around, we brought this forward. The board has asked that we continue to try to come up with reduction for our budget that are away from students. We feel like revising the calendar is a potential way of not reducing staff and not impacting students. I wanted to stay away from the snow day conversation. It just gets too complicated. I think, we brought it up for transparency purposes. I think it's important the board understands every time we have a snow day, the first 2 days we're paying out all staff, and that's $40,000 a day, which is equivalent to almost a salary of one teacher in 1 day. And so we didn't really bring that language forward unless the board would like me to come back next week with something else. I just thought we'd stay away from that. Like I said, it makes it more complicated. So what we did do is, as district leaders, kind of sit down at the request of a previous board meeting to kind of put some guidelines together as to what it would look like if we eliminated 4 student days, increase the student hours during the school year, and what would that look like? We're proposing that instead of eliminating all 4, that 2 of those days, one would be in the middle of first and second semester for the high school. It's not necessarily first and second semester at the elementary. That's what I'm saying, the high school. And the other one would fall before the school year begins, which would give them 4 days before school. I was doing some quick checking here after Lee was talking. I will say that as we've done some background information, most of the school districts in Wisconsin have about 190 days or in the upper 180s for teacher contract days. We're proposing to go from 187 to 185. We are the lowest right now, and we would be even more low in student or teacher contact days with this change. So to go from 189 to 186, no, 4, yeah, whatever, taking out 4 days would be very different than all of the other school districts that we've done the research in. I can share that with you after the meeting. I also just grabbed Ashland as an example. I wanted to see how our staff development days compare to other school districts. Ashland has 12. We don't have, I'm looking at Crystal, I think we've got about 8, and one of those are a work day. So we're not out of whack or out of balance with the amount of professional development days as compared to other school districts. So that's why we're proposing we add those 2 days. We get out 3 days earlier, and it would be a cost savings of $150,000. That would not happen next year because this is the proposed for the 25-26 calendar. The reason we're suggesting it goes in the handbook is so it gives a guidance for us to develop the new calendar next year. Oh, the other thing was around the start and end time. The current language in there talks about 30 minutes before school and 10 minutes after students leave. It creates challenges, and I wanted to articulate the fact that we aren't changing the teacher workday in this proposal. What we're changing is the amount of student contact hours in a given day. The employee handbook is literally where you outline your expectations for our workday. Every employer does it, every school district does it. So by adding these minutes, we were just trying to create clarity. Teachers are already expected to work a 40-hour work week, and outlining what a start and end time is should be unreasonable. But if the board wants to remove that language, you certainly are welcome to do that.
So encouraging.
So encouraging, yes.
Going back up to the 185 days,
Yeah,
how many staff development days are there currently?
8.
There are 8, so we're not adding
So
any?
this doesn't get added 2 more?
Yeah, that's what we currently have.
Right.
Right.
So it says we would have 8 now, but you're saying we already have 8.
Oh, maybe. I think it's 7. Okay, well, there's 2 work days in there, so I was counting. I kind of count them as equal. So we would be adding 1 professional development day and 1 work day to the calendar. So does that make sense? I kind of count them as the same.
There's 7.
There's 7 this year?
1 workday, so 8 total.
Yeah, okay. This would be 10. Gotcha. 2 work days.
And those work days, 1 at semester between first and second semester,
And 1 before school.
and 1 before school.
So I had, when I was a teacher, I completely understand what you all are saying. You take work home on the weekends, you are coming in before and after. It is not a 40-hour work week. I would have arguments with my dad all the time. Well, you only work, you get summers off, blah, blah, blah. It's not like that. I do struggle because we are having to take so much away. And I do believe that our teachers give more than 40 hours a week. And if they're more hung up on the times being so rigid than I do struggle with having that in there. It doesn't cost the district anything. If it supports the morale, then I think that's a positive thing that again doesn't cost the district $1. I don't think anybody probably abuses that where it's not so rigid. So I don't know. I want to hear from more board members as well, but that's my personal opinion at this moment.
Like, just like Kyle said, if it's abused, you have principals to take care of the problem.
Right.
Right. Again, we weren't changing this language because of the calendar. We were trying to, there were some complications with current language when we were adding hours. So we were trying to articulate the fact that the work day is still an 80-hour work day. Yes. This is the general language.
Yes. Yes.
40.
What did I say? 40.
We just doubled it.
This for some of us.
So these aren't rigid times, they're, it's like a guideline or it's.
Well, I mean, this is what it should be. If you're working a 40-hour, the current language doesn't equate to a 40-hour work week. So this equates to a 40-hour work week. If people just came in and 30 minutes before and 10 minutes after kids, you wouldn't be working a 40-hour at the elementary level. So that's, does that make sense, Nick?
I mean, yes, it does say it above there, like 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
No.
The point being the language that's crossed out doesn't equate to a 40-hour work week.
I think
30 and 10.
I think they're saying with meetings and everything else, that it really is. It's just not,
Oh, I get it.
it's just not in the book.
Trying to articulate. Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess my point is it's not an unreasonable request for a principal to say this is when we all start. So I know when people are available.
I mean, does that have to be in the handbook though? Can it just be a 40-hour work week is expected?
Whatever you want. These are recommendations based on the calendar.
Right.
So
Okay.
Can we get rid of professional development days into?
it doesn't save you any money unless you reduce the number of teacher content. Okay. That won't reduce money, right? Oh, yeah.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can trust our principals to follow up, like Ed said, if there is a problem with, people not arriving to the expected time, and for each principal to clearly identify.
Recommendation, we just take out that language.
Yes.
Yes. Maybe
we still just put, and the principals decide on a case-by-case basis what that looks like?
Sure.
Well,
okay.
I mean, I have salaried employees.
No.
And there's an expectation for me. And if I feel like they're not meeting that, I have a discussion with them. And I think that would be the same situation.
So you're saying the section on page 3, where it says start and end times, you're saying that would be deleted?
Well,
I think.
What did we have before? It was 30 minutes before and 10 minutes after?
I'm recommending 40 hours.
You would just recommend having it taken out instead of anything in there?
It creates complications if you're going to increase the times.
Just because it's not explicit per school?
I think I would recommend it's not in there. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that was what was brought up at one of the other board meetings, was if we increase the start and end times, then the secondary level would have been over 40 hours a week with the 30-minute before and 10-minute after language. That was the problem.
And we weren't intending to increase the teacher workday. We
Yes.
were just trying to increase the number of minutes so we could reduce our school days.
Can we just leave the crossed out section crossed out and remove the highlighted section?
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting based on
Yes.
this conversation. So the crossed out section stays crossed out.
Yep.
And then so what it would look like in next week is that yellow section underneath there would be gone.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just leave it as a 40-hour work week is expected and the principals.
Outlined by principals?
Yeah.
I don't think you need principals in there.
Well, that's who would supervise to make sure that's.
I think that's a given though. I don't think you need to tell principals in a handbook to manage your people.
Someone just said it earlier. That's why I was mentioning it.
I think again, one of the benefits, I know a lot of people shared that sometimes there's practices after school coaching. Sometimes there's doctor's appointments, and I know that those are extremely hard to come by. And so again, any small benefit we can give to our teachers to try to express our gratitude and our appreciation, I think is, again, so important and fairly easy to do.
Do you want me to keep going through, do you want Molly to keep going through the recommendations here?
Yep. So one thing I'm still confused on.
Sure.
We're going to go back to professional development. Kyle had mentioned professional development not needing 2 more days. So are we adding 2 more days of professional development?
We're adding 1 workday and 1 professional development. 1 professional development in the middle of the year and 1 workday before school.
Can they just both be work days? And not force teachers into meetings?
Well, I think there's been limited time principals have an opportunity to work with staff and have staff meetings. So I don't think it would be unreasonable that a principal has a staff meeting, or for example, at the elementary level, they might be running PLCs. I might want to look at benchmark data. That was the thought process. I think we put in here that in those work days, you know, the majority of that time is not principal directed.
Right, 50%.
Right.
I think this is something that if we move it forward to next week, we can get feedback too from more people, teachers, send emails with, again, expressing the work days, the staff development days and things like that. And we can amend things next week as well. Need be.
Okay, can Molly?
Okay.
Molly, you want to take it over?
So the other changes in the handbook would obviously coincide with the health insurance. And if it is voted to take the retirees off, then we would remove that from the handbook. And then there was 1 change in the support staff language, and that was changing the response time for employees to respond for an opening before it gets posted out externally from 48 hours to 24 hours. And that was at the request of the directors of operations, to help move the hiring process along faster.
So there's 2 instances here where I don't believe that Nick and I would be able to vote. One very early on.
Oh, because
I
of
can
the
find it.
healthcare piece?
Correct, 1569. So there's, and then just that last one now on the.
Which one?
Because this is 15/69 employees.
12%, 80.
That one there. Because of our status of not being able to vote on the last action item, I don't believe that we can vote on that particular one, nor can we vote on the last one.
Well, I don't, the handbook changes are 1 action item. So because it's a part of it, you couldn't vote on this action item, right?
That's what I believe.
Is there any further discussion?
Can't vote. Useless.
All right. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying, do we need to, because we're scratching that, do we need to amend the, okay.
She'll fix it for next.
She'll fix it, okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, administration recommends the salary increase for teachers for the 24-25 school year as listed below. Added 2% of the base step, which is an additional $886 to each step on the salary schedule for a total of $307,708. See attached new salary schedule.
Stay away from this one.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Schumacher may not vote on this one.
I want to ask for abstentions and maybe moving forward.
That's a good idea. Abstain from the vote.
Abstain as well.
Just so you know, your microphone doesn't work, you have to use it.
I was just going to say, when he says all in favor, that's when you say that, all not in favor, and then you say any abstentions. It was just saying, there you go. Yeah.
All right.
Process.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions?
Aye.
Aye. All right. All right, administration recommends the salary increase for support staff for the 24-25 school year as listed below. Added 2% to each step on the salary schedule for a total increase of $168,002. See attached new salary schedule.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I want Molly to put some background on this.
Okay. Molly, go ahead.
Okay, Dave's gonna tag team it with me.
Yep.
So we have met with the support staff admin professional group since Amy and I started doing listening sessions. They are not in certified unions, so we do not negotiate wages with those groups. And so what we've been hearing from them over the last 4+ years is they would like to have the step added to across all, or the salary increase added to all steps instead of the base wage. And since they're not in a certified union, we can legally do that. The issues with these groups and their salary schedules is it's not just one position on the schedule. As you can see, there's multiple positions on each of these group schedules. What happens when we only give it to step one is scales that have a higher step one than others, or vice versa. Now they're all becoming out of line and we have internal equity issues between positions. Don't want to specifically call out what these positions are, but this is what's causing a problem with these salary schedules that have multiple positions on them.
So you may have somebody in one of these rows that's now making significant more amount than they should as compared to somebody in other parts of this, of a different role.
Correct.
Correct? Okay.
Correct. The other thing is the increase for support staff is very small compared to all other groups. A lot of these steps are just getting a 25-cent increase per year. So I feel support staff is hard to retain and hard to fill positions. They're very high turnover. They can work in any industry. And so in order to retain highly qualified support staff, I believe we should give them the 2% across all steps.
On the budget side, when I look at it, it's $15,000 is the difference. It's a very small amount to show the appreciation out to the other employees out there. I know one part that was brought up is why don't we do that for teachers? What happens with teachers is per Act 10, we can negotiate on base wage up to CPI. What we do as a district is figure out how much can we afford to offer as a salary increase. So this year was 2% off of the base wage. We're not looking at the percentage amount, we're looking at the total sum of money. So I know there was discussion, well, let's have it 2% across the board for teachers as well. Well, then that number jumps significantly to the point that we're not able to balance the budget. Then it's a huge salary increase. The other option would be, all right, well then spread it across so everybody gets the same, but then with 50% of the teachers being a step 13 maxed out, that percentage is going to go down then because you need to give more money to the top side. So then instead of looking at a 2% off the base, you're looking at, 1% or maybe even less on every single step. And then at that point in time, the 1% down on step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is significantly smaller than what the at that point in time for a step 13 teacher. So, and I don't think there's anybody that would disagree with the fact that we wish we could give just CPI across the steps to every single person in our district, but we can't do that. We can't do that financially. And also, as far as the negotiating, I know in the past they've done it a little different where they divvied up that amount by the steps, but you can't negotiate that with the union. But that's also something we can always look at, where if we need to reevaluate the teacher scales, then that's something we can look at, but it's not something you can negotiate on Act 10 on. So it's just the minimal amount is going to make a difference, a huge difference in morale to our support staff. So.
And to reiterate David's point, it would be an additional $15,000 and would affect 316 employees.
Yeah, I wanted to, as you can see up here, these are our bus drivers, our cooks, our engineers, paraprofessionals, custodians, et cetera. We have 316 of them. They are important. And we are in competition with Quick Trips and McDonald's for these people. And so we have to try to retain them. And when we're only talking about a quarter or two for some of them on the top, I just, again, to hear the morale portion of this is really crucial. And I would guess that a lot of these people do contribute to making teachers' lives a little bit easier as well. And so it may feel or look unfair saying, well, we just get it off the base, but that's Act 10. We have our hands tied. They have asked us, I know I was in the meet and confers last year, and they've asked that we consider them differently. And again, when you're having a request made to you that seems feasible, you try to make it happen. You want to try to listen to the people that you're representing. So I do support the 2% for support staff. Now, as we talk about the others, I'll share more.
I think the problem lies every year we've talked about this. We've discussed being the same across the board at every level, teachers, professional administrative support, so that we're not divisive amongst the groups. And that's why it's always been like this year, 2% for every group. It was never discussed to go away from that. What's that?
Yeah.
It was never
sharing this.
It was never discussed to go against that and put this 2% on steps versus the base. I think if you want to change it up, or we as a board want to change it up and think of everybody differently, then we need to do that prior to tonight during our discussions about pay raises. In a circumstance like this, if I would have known that we would be recommending the 2% on steps for everybody else and base for the teachers, and understand the teachers, we can't go beyond the base. I understand that. I said, but if I would have known we would have been going this direction, I would have acted differently on every group. I would have said something like 3% for teachers and 2% for everybody else, or 2% for teachers and 1% for everybody else on the steps to make it more equal. Of course, my numbers are not right. I'm just using it as an example, but that's something I would have looked at to do differently if that's what we're going to do. So while I'm supportive of support staff having an increase, I'm not supportive of going against our agreements of not being divisive amongst the groups, and that's what we're doing. We're pitting teachers against the rest of the groups at this point, because the teachers have asked for the same thing for years, but understand we can't do it. So just because another group asked for it, we decided as a board to stay equal amongst all the groups, and that's not what we're doing by these recommendations now. And I think there's things we could do to remedy that in future years, but this year we're beyond that. I think we need to stay at the agreed 2% at the base for everybody, and not change it at this point. Next year, we should look at something different. Look at each category differently, maybe for raises. I don't know, but again, we're beyond that for this year, and that's not what we agreed. It's not what we decided. So.
Clarify why we're bringing it up. I mean, this has been reoccurring from our perspective, and we've talked about it in different contexts, and for transparency purposes, we feel like this conversation needs to happen here. So whatever direction you want us to go, we'll make that happen. But I think it's important people understand the dialogue that happens and how we get to these conversations. When people continue to come to a listening session and we don't ever bring it up for action item, they don't understand the dialogue. So I think the dialogue is important so people understand how we got to where we are. Does that make sense? And I think for transparency, it has to be done in open session where people can hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree, but I think at the time where we're setting this percentage and all our agreements on how we're going to do stuff, that's the time to have that discussion.
Yeah, and
I mean, I just got this, well, whenever this agenda was posted, so I was never in agreement with separating one group from the next. I might be in favor of next year, but again, that's all going to change. That could mean a different percent for teachers, different percent for support, different percent for the other groups. But we didn't discuss that this year, and I don't want to put one against the other.
yeah, and I agree with that. So again, one of the challenges was we didn't discuss this a ton in closed session. I think it was just assumed that it was going to be the same across the board. And so then again, we got this on Friday.
Thursday, I think.
Thursday night. And so it was a.
Molly sent something ahead of the agenda though?
Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday.
Is it Thursday? Okay.
And so again, we have to process this a little bit quicker.
I think you need to be careful though, not a lot of things can happen in closed session.
Yeah.
What we talk about in closed session is SFT negotiation, so.
So only teacher.
Correct.
So anytime we look at raises for these groups, they have to be in open session.
There's very limited parameters for when you can be in closed session.
Well then Ed, I guess it's right now that we have to talk about it.
Well, then.
I think
My
when we talk about.
my discussion stays the same though. I'm not going to.
So next year then, you want this, how far in advance to talk about it in open session?
Well, it's got to be further in advance because, you know, if we're going to treat every group differently, then that's the idea, that's the mentality I need to go into to make the decision on this percentage.
Typically, we go in about February or so, we'll approach the board with what raises potentially could look like, knowing SFT negotiations happen in February or March. So that could be a time next year that this conversation could happen. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, I'm not.
You're saying you're saying it applies to the negotiations as well. The whole, how much we invest in salary increases affects the budget planning, right?
Well, I think in general it does.
Right.
Because typically, from the time I've been here, we've always considered, again, not being divisive, not pitting one group against another, not being different. Because we could sit here and say support staff should get 5%, teachers get 2%, you know, administration gets 10, whatever, you know. We could do that, but we've typically decided not to do that because we want to be equal with everybody. Now, I understand in the at least the support staff category, a 2% raise at that bottom is not very high. I get that. But I think when we're deciding this percentage in general, we have to have the mentality that we as a board are going to stray from treating everybody equal across the board to being different for each class, each category.
So I'm just wondering about other board members and if they have the same feelings or if they want us to go in a different direction moving forward.
The timelines are always difficult to figure out. Giving us a month ahead of time seems to be more appropriate than 3 days ahead of time.
How are we supposed to retain these people? We're talking about when I did the math, and this is just an average because I don't know where everybody is on their step, but we're talking about a difference of $47 each support staff. Like, really?
To be clear, my problem lies more with the professional administration levels than the support levels.
And that's why we're taking them separately. I agree. But support staff, we have to keep them. They are in it with our kids, a lot of them, day in and day out.
I agree with you, Brooke. What? Yeah, I don't think that's the decision-making we have made or have been making.
But we've talked about going against the status quo as well. I don't know. Do you have anything? Does anybody have any?
I think from that perspective, like regardless, more time is helpful.
I agree.
Even if, like you said, if that's happening in beginning of March or, if even February was possible, like great. I know of course, we can't do it in closed session, so plenty of closed sessions lately, but yeah, I mean, even a month ahead of time to throw it around and see what comes of it, discuss it openly.
I agree with you, Nick, and I agree with Ed that setting a precedent, treating everybody the same, we should do that now. And if we want to change it for the future, have that conversation down the road. But that's not what we were going to do up to this point.
And again, we're not putting this on the agenda to throw this at you for a quick decision. We're throwing this on the agenda because
to have the discussion.
Conversation needs to happen so people can understand why we're doing what we're doing, and if we're going to change, how is that going to look?
And I got to second that with Amy. I mean, when I was in transportation, this was a big thing. The drivers came in and said, hey, why is it off a base? Well, Act 10 requires that it's off a base, but that's only for teachers. And the decisiveness, I don't think you're going to see teachers get mad because somebody else gets a little bit of a bump. I would say across the board even. When you have, the other part of this is on a budgetary side, sure, just give the money back. I mean, this money isn't, we're not going to say, all right, we're taking it away from support staff and we're going to give it to teachers. It's just going to come back to work through it. So all I know is when I was in charge of the bus drivers, this was one thing that constantly came up, and not just during listening sessions, because I didn't get a lot of people that showed up to it, but they would come back and say, we don't make anything as it is. We make peanuts as it is. And now you just want to take a little bit of those peanuts away.
I do agree with you, Brooke, that support staff deserves it. So if we were going to make a concession, that's where I would make it.
If we're going to change what we do, you're only going to get my favor for the support staff. It's not going to be for the other two categories once we discuss them.
I agree.
Until we figure something else out, I'm not going to sit here and give the 2% on a base and then, no offense, but people that make considerable amount more money on each step. I'm not going to do it. That's just me.
I will tell you, now this does not affect me, but I do have operations directors that report up to me, and that is decisive. There's a reason they make more, because if you see they're sitting out here, most of the people are here by choice. Those operation directors are not here by choice. I require them to be here. So to say that they're not working hard for their money or they don't, and I'm saying, and I take that, I don't mean it like that. What I mean is.
That's not what it's said.
Right, yeah. But to say that they don't deserve it as well when they're not restricted by Act 10.
They deserve the same raise we give the teachers. That's plain and simple, but we're not doing that. We're giving them a higher raise than we're giving the teachers.
All I'm saying is it's a choice you're making.
I'm not saying I don't think that they're not working. I think they're working great. I think they're great individuals. There is a difference here though. And going from a base to a step is a difference, is divisive.
And I'm not trying to be divisive with you. I just have to be an advocate for the people that work underneath me, and that similar to how we're bringing this up for support staff, this needs to be discussed, and everybody has to, I am full support of teachers, but I'm also in full support of our administrative staff who work very hard for what they do. And are held by a restriction based upon act. And honestly, it's peanuts.
And that doesn't affect us. The three of us aren't in that category.
Well, I think you're putting words in my mouth. You know, I have agreed and am agreement in 2% for everybody at the base level. Everybody, because I value everybody. I'm not in agreement to give one class 2% on a base and another one 2% on a step, which is more. And I don't think that's showing any animosity towards those people. I don't think that's showing any divisiveness. That's saying I want 2% for everybody at the same level.
Again, with the math, then the support staff would not be getting a raise higher than the teachers. Just, you had said that for the other two subgroups. So the support staff, if you average it, again, I do not know who's on what step, would not be getting, the math works out to be like $530 per person. So again, it would not be more than the teachers' raises. But the other two groups, like you said, were.
I just want to say that, you know, if I was a teacher, I would see that as a slap in the face. I'm not as good as. That's a potential that's there.
For support staff?
No.
Oh.
For
teachers,
admin professionals.
It's not about.
Well, we're treating them differently. And I would say why.
But right now we're talking about just support staff. Well,
Right.
we should be.
I voiced my opinion in agreement with the support staff.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you stray from one category to the next, that's where you're starting the divisiveness. That's where you're starting treating one person, one group different than the next. Again, if I would have known we're going to treat one group different from the next, then I probably would have requested structuring the raises differently.
But
we're beyond that.
Yeah. We need to resolve the support staff recommendation.
What do you mean? We're going to just vote on it right now? Is there any further discussion? All right, so I'll repeat it. This is for administration recommending the salary increase for support staff for the 2024-25 school year as listed below. Added 2% to each step on the salary schedule for a total increase of $168,002. So we're voting on that. All right.
Correct.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All right, motion carries. All right, administration recommends the salary increase for professional staff for the 2024-2025 school year as listed below. Added 2% to each step on the salary schedule for a total increase of $33,188. See attached new salary schedule.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Same discussion.
Yeah. We have 17 professional staff from the information that I gathered from Molly. That's quite a substantial increase. More. Yeah.
And what the others increase.
So for looking at this one and, going back to the previous one, I looked at the support staff a little bit differently too, just because, like Brooke said, for all those reasons, correct? And I think just getting deep into the discussion, like we are, like it can cause divisiveness and, pitting one against another. But like the reality is like, not all things are equal. Not all positions are equal. Not all categories are equal. So for me, I don't take issue with that as much, Ed. When you're looking at that, and granted, the recommendation up till last Thursday was 2% across the board with, the steps. And it's not obviously with the teachers this time, but this doesn't change anything for me. I don't think. Like I would still vote a yes on that.
I do struggle a little bit more with this one because it is, again, about $2,000 more per support or per professional staff. And that is, if I were a teacher, it'd be a little bit more difficult to see.
My argument stays the same, Nick, is if I would have known we were going to do the steps,
I understand.
I would have structured it differently, or at least asked for it differently. But because we're beyond that point, we're here and we've always agreed to keep it equal. So I'm not going to get into it again, but that's where I come from.
I feel like, just going back to your point, I feel like we've never been able to get to that place where I feel like we've always tried to talk about it and then we run out of time. And so I think that's, so this is good. This is the time we need to talk about this. So again, it's not to put you on the spot, but we got to have the conversation at some point, And
I mean, I asked, why now? What was the timing of this? If they've asked for 4 years, why now? But this is good to start the conversation.
I'm not entirely opposed to it in the future. I'm opposed to it right now. Because this is where we're at. This is the percentage we decided on. We never decided on steps for some groups and no steps for the teachers.
And part of our job is to bring recommendations.
Right.
And that's why, Molly sees how this plays out every day. So I think that's why.
And so had we come to the board and said, let's take all these groups individually and figure it out, I think that would have been a different conversation. And I could be on board with, looking at each of these separately. But I can't get on board with it this year right now. I could probably next year.
I get it.
Because like I said, if you did, 3% for the teachers at a base and 1% for all the other groups, but at a step, how does that equal? How does that pan out?
We can play with the numbers.
I'm just throwing it down.
Numbers, yeah.
But if you play with those numbers and fluctuate, could it be equal with giving both groups what they want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Part of our
I think we could get there.
I do agree with
When
that.
you don't do it equal across the step, that's when the inequities quickly happen between the rows.
So that's part of that conversation.
And that should happen when we're having our negotiations in February.
We have to be really careful that we don't talk about these in closed session. It has to be an open session.
Right. But at the same time is what I'm saying.
Yep.
It can be on your mind.
Yep.
So are these numbers for professional staff fairly competitive with neighboring districts, with other places?
Yep. We try to keep them there. So sometimes we brought individual jobs to you to increase the scale. If, I think like a couple years ago, we brought the nurses to the board because they were significantly lower. So.
We don't compete with other districts for these type of employees.
Okay.
the non-districted.
These really, we compete with other industries, really.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, we compete with hospitals and private entities.
All right, any further discussion? Okay. So again, this is to approve, administration recommends the salary increase for professional staff for the 24-25 school year as listed below. Added 2% to each step on the salary schedule for a total increase of $33,188. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
How many was that?
3-3.
I said no.
Roll call.
Aye, yes or no?
Aye. Yes.
Vic?
No.
Brooke?
No.
I was a no. Steve?
Aye.
Aye.
So 3-3, so either way it doesn't pass.
Can you amend a motion so that we can bring this forward for next week with something?
I'd make a motion that,
The same outcome.
I'd make a motion that it's 2% on the base of the second schedule.
All right, is there any discussion on that? All right,
Request that we get information on that then.
Yep, I'll get a new scale and then the cost would be 27,188 instead of 33,188.
okay, that's what I have down to, okay. All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, administration recommends the salary increase for administrators for the 24-25 school year as listed below. Added 2% to each step on the salary schedule for a total increase of $58,721. See attached new salary schedule.
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Same thing?
Call for the question with a roll call vote, please.
All right. Again, this is 2% on each step.
Diane Smith?
Nay? No?
Vic Olson?
No.
Brooke?
No.
I'm a no. Steve Olson?
Aye.
Yes, aye.
Nick Schumacher is an aye. It fails.
All right, motion fails.
Make a motion, it's 2% on the base.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Would you like a support staff revised schedule also for next week,
Yes.
just to have it?
Yes.
Okay.
That one is accurate.
Well, I'm saying in the event they would change their mind next week.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So they have both of them?
Thank you.
Okay. And so now, Amy, with these voted on, can we go back and amend next week as well?
Yeah.
All right, so there's
Just
still,
puts it on the agenda for next week for discussion.
all right,
But we'll put on next week. For these last two, we'll put the recommendation based on this conversation tonight.
all right.
That make sense?
All right, I have no discussion items, no informational items. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. That does conclude our meeting this evening. Next meeting is next Monday, the 8th. We will meet in closed session at 5 p.m. and hope to be back in open session by 6 p.m. I want to thank all of you for being, we will try to get the pack. Thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mad at me?
Oh,
Okay.
that'll get mad.
Kelly Cantar.
It's even though.